Right.
Well,
Somebody else.
No.
It's not
I'm
yours.
not on. I'm not in. I'm not in the meeting.
Yeah, that's coming. That's coming to you.
I know, I don't know how to do it all. The words are in the
You
microphone.
turn the volume all the way down.
Oh, the volume down?
Oh, maybe.
Maybe that button that, at the top.
Yeah, okay, I mean, but I'm here.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, you get picked up by microphone, you don't need to be on the computer.
The microphone.
The microphone in front of you, it's on the voice, not.
Yeah, the computer
Not the
microphone.
computer on, it's doing an infinite feedback.
Oh, okay.
It's this button at the top.
Huh.
Your computer volume. Do you know what I'm saying? This
I do.
button, that.
Yeah.
That's what I have to do when, we both are on a Google Meet. When we're both on a Google Meet, I have to shut that volume button off on the
Oh,
keyboard.
Like,
Yep, right
what
there.
do you call it?
Yep, on the keyboard.
I see. We're such geeks, we're all here early. Math question in a second.
No, that's muted, so whatever's going live right now is muted, there's no sound. There's sound, so you're being picked up by the microphones when you speak. But it's coming through the computer, which says it's recording. No, it won't go through. It's going through. It's the microphone which goes. Your computer is, you can share the screen, so if what's up there, you can't.
Okay, so even though you're carrying it through it, this isn't all, I was just wondering, it just felt like everything's going out live.
No.
Okay. Alright, so what I need to do, okay, so I just need to have that muted, we're good to go. So I was trying to say.
I know. That microphone's on, so I think,
Like everything.
I think you can, people can hear it, because when we first came in, that microphone was off, and now it's on. So
That's what I was trying to tell him.
I think he doesn't, I just wouldn't say anything.
Hello.
Hello, everybody.
Hey.
Hello?
Adam, how are you?
Hey, Adam.
How are you?
Good, how are you? It looks like, am I gonna be it tonight?
I don't know, maybe. Hi, Adam, I'm Tom. We've been talking a little.
Yeah, I think we're gonna have one point.
Oh, okay. All right, probably. Nice to meet you again.
Yes.
I don't know, Russ, you think?
I know Nancy's not showing up.
Okay.
Coach probably isn't.
No, I don't think so.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, I understand why. Peter
Can you make it?
would be a crapshoot.
I don't see this going on. This is being recorded. It's not being broadcasted. So nothing's going on.
Oh,
Oh, nothing's going
that's
on.
good to know. Okay.
But when,
Gotcha.
but when we post it, the recording, won't this all be posted as part of it?
Nope, we edited it out.
Oh, okay. That was my question. Awesome.
Oh.
Thank you. We have a student, Sydney Stillman in the
Waiting room.
waiting room. She's a panelist.
She
I
has.
brought her hard card.
Participated, but she has to. Oh, there she is.
I see, thank you, Tom.
She got it.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
She's at a VSBA.
What?
Is she at a VSBA?
I do not, maybe, because is that?
Always just hear this thing.
Yeah, 'cause I forget,
All right.
because the H Corps is meeting at this tonight too. And one of the things they were supposed to be talking about is student
Didn't realize she
representatives,
edited it
but
out.
This is correct. Well, I didn't know if you
that's,
could.
I think.
to be honest.
Because
got
we'll, you
postponed.
can edit anything before the meeting actually starts.
Oh,
You just can't edit anything.
No, we have some, but because no school
Yeah.
board members gonna be
Either
there.
end. Once it starts, when it starts and when it
Because
ends.
technically, and
Adam, what are you doing now?
Schedule.
What's that?
Where do you work?
yeah, because they missed out last week, so that's because
Okay.
of timing. But one thing
Are you living in
that we
Livingston?
probably need
Okay.
to look
I didn't know if
into
you were just fixing it up
is
or if
whether
you
the
had moved
student
in. so-
representatives on the committee could vote.
Longer than it was supposed to, but
Because
pretty common.
my gut tells me they should be able to, because
to 10 months.
that's
Oh,
only a,
holy
that's
cow.
not an elected.
Exterior stuff.
Yeah, and I think it would be important for the,
How was it inside? Was it
yeah, but
reasonable
I was
condition or was
thinking
it a
on
ton
the
of
legal
work?
statute point of view.
Right.
I just wanna make sure.
Yeah,
Yes, you would, please. Because I mean,
Cosmetic.
because if they
I know
could,
it's problematic on the school board. Some towns will have them vote, but it doesn't have towns, it's just like.
Oh, wow.
okay,
On the school board, but that's because they're not elected.
exactly,
It's not there
Subset that was.
to the people.
My
yeah,
whole
and
life,
some of
I
them
just know you're,
would be
I just
underage
know
anyway.
you're sitting on the porch, you know, so.
So,
Sometimes just like one of it's like,
yeah.
equally elected.
Ah.
And I would think almost in theory that whatever's decided would have to be at least run by us as a board. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, really?
And that was the
Wow.
understanding in the meeting,
That's cool.
the Corey meeting, that it would have to be presented here for approval. Wouldn't have to go to the select.
I
board.
believe it.
And what do they really?
Yeah,
vote?
right?
Well, I
Like,
see
we vote
random
on
stuff out on the lawn
recommendations.
on my watch,
Like-
and I feel like.
Like, there's a recommendation for the select board that they need to improve their policies and how they're organized, that kind of thing.
Oh,
And it
boy.
would potentially be the same thing here, like if they say our training program will make a recommendation. Because that's a little vague within the whole thing too,
Yeah.
that how much
Okay,
authority
so-
they really are, don't
So when I
have.
see,
Right, but they-
Nelson,
Yeah, and
brother,
and there's a
Or
They
she-
committee,
also
it's-
report
they bought
back,
it?
like,
yeah,
okay.
Why they exist, prove your existence.
I talked to Coach about this already, but for
Wow.
the meeting on the 26th, I have a commitment from the Haven people to come in and do a presentation.
Oh, good, good.
I am gonna call down, actually, I'm gonna call here, because
Yeah, keep up with that.
the project
Yeah.
is much bigger. And this is only like phase one
Yep.
of, Yeah. so we have to discuss it.
Yes, that's the select board.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I have a community member that's always after me.
Yeah.
Does it matter that the title of the meeting is not correct?
I agree, I
It's
mean,
not correct,
You know, I can safeguard
Oh,
the students in schools.
and it's a school board, not the select board.
And I mean, that's.
I
the-
No?
Hello, all.
Can you hear me, Jake?
Yep.
You must be there, Mr.
I think we're gonna have to too, because of the town clerk wants everything.
Peter, does Olivia need to be led?
Can't turn-
Probably does.
Meeting on the 26th,
Oh.
this is gonna be too late, but everything's not done tonight.
There we go. How you doing, Peter?
I'm doing well, sir. I hope you are too.
Yes. Other than being a little bit cold, you know, hey,
So-
we're operating good.
I'm not really comfortable
Can
putting
you let Kevin?
bogus
Chris-
numbers.
You would have seen a lot more days like this years ago, so.
Absolutely.
Posted on like the town informational page, but I put the caveat in that this is gonna, under discussion and subject to change. Just because people are asking,
Yeah,
we gotta be transparent as we can.
so, yeah, I don't know if you wanna move the 26th meeting up to next week or move, just have 2 meetings.
My preference would be have 2 meetings.
Yeah, because the 26th would be nice just to
Oh, Hava
kind of
too.
do that.
Yeah,
But the auditor also was checking, she could come on the 26th, we don't know if she can come on a week from today.
it would be the 19th, but yeah, so,
My COVID ran.
but yeah, so I mean, I was.
That would be fine.
Coach,
What, guys, Tom
Yep.
and Russ, with that discussion we had earlier about that
Be right back.
report, the report that needs to get done prior to. What is the dates of availability for the auditor, Tom?
Olivia.
Right now, the 26th, but we're hoping that she might be able to do the 19th. Because we can discuss it once we open the meeting, but I think
Right.
we're gonna need another meeting to finalize the warnings.
Well, we're gonna need to, and hopefully by tomorrow, well, actually by Friday, they'll have the new regs for the actual meetings. Because we just passed it out of the House this afternoon. So it's on its way to the Senate. So all of the virtual,
Yeah.
all of the open meeting law variations that needed to happen are happening. The only thing left is the election ballots, and that we'll be doing probably Friday.
Just accept.
Thank you, Coach.
So, that's moving pretty quickly because all of the towns are experiencing the same thing we're experiencing right now, timing wise, to get the warrants out in a timely way.
I don't know if she knows that.
Yeah,
I guess
it's
she
sort
has to
of funny
accept.
this year, the way
She's
the
been let
meeting
in, but she
falls.
hasn't accepted.
Yeah. It's an anomaly in the calendar from what I can understand. At least that's what the Government Operations Committee ran into. Okay. So looks like
Looks like we have a slim quorum. Very slim.
yeah. I was gonna say. So it is 6:03. So I guess we'll go ahead and get started. I'd like to call the January 12th Hartford School Board meeting to order. And
Coach, is your camera muted?
whoops, there it is. I was hiding. It was one of those days, But anyways, so first order of business is the approval of the agenda. There are some things I think that folks would like to reorder. So why don't we go ahead and do that, and then we'll have a
Also,
motion.
we have one ad under the consent agenda. I'd like to add a nomination.
Cool.
Okay. And Coach,
Yes.
I am proposing we add a section to discuss the audit under number 4, and that we move the facilities repair reserve funds and balance to before the budget.
And that makes sense.
We keep the maintenance and improvement committee where it is. And since we have our applicant for the town meeting committee, I would say that we put that first under number 4 as well, in case he doesn't want to stay for the rest of the exciting meeting.
Well, that was the hope, that we could move as many of the our guests forward in the agenda as possible. And then we'd have our board discussion following. So that's all in keeping. Any other amendments?
Do we have a need for an executive session or anything like that?
Not,
I don't, but I don't know if the board does.
well, let's, if we do, we'll have to determine what
Okay.
type of session it is, so we'll have to pull the appropriate language
Right.
in order to move into that. But if we do need to call one, we'll call it appropriately.
Okay. All right. With that, I move that we approve the agenda as amended.
I'll second.
So we have a motion and a second to pass the agenda as amended. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. So let's go through the scratch notes here. So the first guest there we go. So we moved all of the four forward. So let's hear about we moved the reserve first, right?
No, I was suggesting
No.
we moved the town school community applicant first.
Okay.
But you have global ends, and then Olivia's report, Olivia and Sydney's.
Before that, we
Yeah.
didn't
Yeah.
move. We
Yeah.
didn't move 4 up. We just rearranged it.
Exactly.
Right. The order of 4. Okay.
Yeah.
Alrighty, so let's go ahead with the review of the district's ends in relation to current events.
All right, Coach, I'm gonna take over the screen for a minute. So we're gonna focus on life skills tonight. And we have a slideshow from the high school from last week's exhibition night. So you can watch that as I chat with y'all. So last week was the culminating evening for the first semester's exhibition evening. And each child describes their project and the experience they had during the semester. And if you look at, or were to know in terms of the life skills, the specific indicators that it's hitting on is where it's talking about planning and setting goals for today, tomorrow, and the future. I think that you would see a lot of students really starting to access what it is in their future that they're passionate about. And then they found learning opportunities either within the school or within the community to be able to start that journey. Tom and I walked around and got to meet with all of the students, and it was pretty clear that there was a balance of independent and adult working and community relations that was all integral for the success of the different projects. When we chatted with the students, what really stood out to me was some of the depth of understanding that they had on their particular topics. You just happen to see Hope Happens Here went by. That example is if you listen to podcasts, that's Caroline Hamilton's project at the high school, and she interviews guests and then she posts it, and students and the community are able to access and learn about student mental health needs. So it was a great night, and it definitely highlights the different life skill indicators that we would see in the ends policy. Luckily for us, we have Sydney was one of the presenters. I don't know if you noticed her in the pictures. But this is also an example of this would be what we started to talk about last year with Dylan when we talked about the student representatives on our school board. That's a perfect example of creating your own learning outside the school day. So just things to keep in mind.
Cool.
Thanks, Roy. It was an incredible experience. It's one of those things that, is very uplifting because you get to see students, applying the skills they've learned to things that, they really enjoy and that they're engaged in and that they want to pursue probably after they get out of Hartford High School. And some of the projects that simply amazing, not exaggerating at all, but I walked into a young man playing a guitar, electric guitar, and you saw the background music. And he was the first one I visited, and he had built the guitar with his grandfather out of oak and mahogany, and it was absolutely stunning. And he just was very skilled at talking about what he did and how he did it and why he did it, and it was incredible. But there was many projects like that. Another young man built a drone that at first was built out of plastic, but then he realized that wasn't going to be durable enough for a drone with all the weather and the elements up in the sky. So he built it out of carbon fiber, and that was very durable. Flew it around at the high school, and then he actually built a computer hard drive. And he built it out of see-through plastic so you could kind of see what was going on inside it, and had lights for the different components, different color lights, and it was fascinating. That was just a few. I mean, there were several. Another young woman did ride-alongs with the Lebanon and the Hartford police, and how much she had learned doing that, and probably was going to pursue a career in law enforcement, and had quite a plan for that. It was just incredible. Really a good night. And we're so lucky we got it in before Omicron got so bad that we probably wouldn't have held it this week. So we just got it in the nick of time. And it was nice to see Sydney, our board member, student board member, really in a really positive, exciting presentation she did on her project. So that was nice to see. Thanks, Sydney.
Well,
Sorry.
I think we're really fortunate at the end of the day, even without getting out and about as much as we would like to during this, particular outbreak. I run into our graduates in the strangest places. And this week, I ran into two of our postgrads who are the picture that Roy talks about of what is a Hartford graduate. One was working a full-time job, it was at a fast food establishment. He's on a management track, just doing really well. And what else could you ask for? Ran into a young woman who surprised me because she said, "Do you remember me? You handed me my diploma." And it happened to be there's an Esquire after her name now. So she's a practicing attorney. So it's like, somebody's getting older. You're getting older, Tom. It's not me.
Just me. No one else here, but just me.
Oh, I'm getting older.
But I'm really proud of our students, and our teachers and administrators too, because you guys are the ones that help steer them along the way. So just it's a very special place. We're pretty fortunate at the end of the day. So thank you for that update. Now we'll have our student report.
Thank you for that introduction, Coach. So Sydney and I are both here today to present on the student report. It's been a somewhat crazy week or month since the last time that we gave this report. But to talk a little bit about student life, especially because she was a part of the exhibition night, Sydney, would you like to take this slide over?
Yeah, sure. I'd be happy to. So, hi everybody. Forgot to say hello earlier. As you saw in the slideshow, yes, I was a part of the exhibition night. I had the opportunity to work in the span of 3.5, 4 months on my project, which was based off athletic training and physical therapy. But yeah, I don't want to go too much into detail on that because I can go on and on about it. Overall, there was a large variety of projects that I saw from a bunch of my peers, and it was a great opportunity that I was very grateful to be a part of. And the class itself was very entertaining and very great to be a part of. Some finals today. A lot of my peers have also expressed that they are excited that their finals are over and they are ready to move forward into the next semester with an open mindset and with a learning experience that is ready to expand in a sense. COVID has been a big issue with a lot going on, especially in sports and with the music department recently. There's been a lot of game cancellations and postponements due to other schools or other teams getting COVID cases or Omicron cases, and it's been pretty difficult on some of the athletes, but as best as we can, we're all trying to push through it and not get Omicron. So yeah, Olivia, if you want to go on to the next slide,
Absolutely.
you can talk.
Yeah, so right now within the school community, there's a lot of focus on COVID-19. It's very heavily affecting students and teachers. There have been a lot of teacher absences this past week. And we're just trying to figure out how to keep school going as much as we can and how to keep supporting students when they have to be out because they test positive or they have to quarantine or things like that. But it is very nice to see that there is a subsection of students who are out, not because they tested positive, but because they're having side effects from their boosters. And it's really this moment of hope that in this time when a lot of people are getting sick, the Hartford community is still coming together to really be there to protect ourselves and to protect our teachers and protect our classmates by getting vaccinated. There have also been some changes to the final exam policy. And right now in Hartford High School, we are starting to discuss the relevance of final exams and whether it's important that we continue to have final exams as an examination, or if they can be more like final culminating projects like they were last year. And also whether we need to keep finals as this big moment of stress that's 20% of your grade for the rest of the year. And so this year, Mr. Fogg has given teachers the options to decide the weight of their final exams. And previously it was that final exams were a solid 20% of your grade, and that you could split that 20% up as either 20 from one final exam or 10% from a midterm and 10% from a final. But this year, teachers are having a little bit more flexibility due to COVID. And then some areas of appreciation. Both Sydney and I would really like to thank Mr. Fogg and our nurse and COVID coordinator, Felicia Hayes, for continuing to keep us up to date on all of these COVID communications and to be continuing to send out emails detailing lists of COVID symptoms, more information on booster shots, and also more recently, how we can get testing kits from the state of Vermont so that we can determine if we or someone in our household have COVID-19. And I really cannot thank these people enough for being so committed to communicating clearly and on a regular basis with our school community. This year has been really scary, and the past 2 weeks especially, due to such a huge spike in the number of cases in our learning community. But these emails have really been a moment of clarity, and that has allowed us to find some hope and to keep going on. And another area that really brings me a lot of hope is the number of substitute teachers that have been coming into the high school to keep our doors open and to make sure that we keep learning, even in this really weird and unconventional time. Like Sydney and I had mentioned earlier, there are a lot of teachers that are out either because they tested positive or they have to quarantine or someone in their family tested positive. And so there have been a lot of substitute teachers coming in, or teachers who are stepping up to help out their coworkers and, watching each other's classes or teaching for each other during prep or things like that. And it's really amazing to see that so many educators in our Hartford community have come together to make it so that we can keep school open and keep this moment of normalcy. And so I really would like to thank absolutely everyone who's been involved in continued communications about COVID and involved in keeping our school open and keeping things as normal as they can be in this really weird time.
Thank you, Olivia, for saying something.
Thank you.
I think so many people in the pandemic are they're so concerned about their own health and their family's health. They don't realize how much, people are doing. And Nurse Hayes has been working so hard. It's incredible. All of our nurses have been working so hard. They deserve a great amount of gratitude from all of us, the community, the school board, the administration. They are rock stars through and through. Never hesitate to work well into the evening to do what they have to do to notify folks. It's been amazing. So just hope
I
the board
completely agree.
sees that.
So thank you, Sydney and Olivia,
Thank you.
and congratulations to both of you as you continue your work. Sydney on your project, and Olivia on one of your college announcements.
Yes, one of two.
Congrats.
Thank you.
Okay. Now we will move into our section 4. And speaking of Hartford alums, our town school meeting committee applicant, Tom, you want to do the introduction?
Yeah, right. Roy, if you can pull up, I have his application, if he doesn't mind us sharing it
Are you okay?
to the world, yeah. Yeah, Adam Ricker. I can't remember exactly what year did you graduate? Do you mind going to the mic because people won't be able to hear you? But
Yep.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Adam Ricker, and he wants to be on the town school meeting committee, and we're lucky that the school board snatched him first to represent the school board. We each get a candidate, and then we do one together. So what year did you graduate?
Graduated in 2007,
Evan.
which means I was
Cool.
in probably 6th grade back in 22 years ago, I guess. All the students, so that goes for an
We were making Roy feel old now. So we're just really fortunate to have Adam here. Hasn't been easy to find, members of the community that want to serve on this important committee, but it's a sort of a thankless job. I mean, we'll do our best to thank you, but you do a lot of work behind the scenes to make sure that the town school meetings at this time of the year go off without a hitch. So, we have budget discussion and candidates night. We have the town meeting on Saturday. And we have a lot of information that's disseminated and things that are advertised and signs that go up. And, you just want to make sure that everybody's aware of what they're voting on and when they're voting and how they can learn more if they want to know more. And I just feel like it's a really important public service that you want to help us with. And it's really great. So thank you for being here. I don't know if you want to say a little bit about what you do in your other job or your
Sure.
real job.
Yep. So my professional career, I'm a town planner and zoning administrator for the town of New London. For 10 years, I worked for the Upper Valley Lake Central Regional Planning Commission in Lebanon. And the town of New London was a client of ours. So I've been down there for 6 years working for them. And have been full-time for the town since February. So my professional life is planning public meetings. Lisa O'Neill had reached out and helped on a few elections. So knowing that I had experience with public meetings, she asked if I'd be interested in serving. Looking forward to doing something in my own town for once after a decade of service to other towns.
That's great. Honestly, I can't think of a better candidate. Your background lends so well to this role, and hopefully you can help us and really improve things. It's great.
Really looking forward to it, Adam.
Thank you.
You graduated, let's see, a year after one of my daughters.
Yep, you're behind Angela.
Yeah. It's Hartford, right? Everybody's, what is that, 6 degrees of separation? Not very, right? But Adam, we are really excited to have you represent us on that committee. Another proud Hartford moment.
Coach,
Yes.
before we go on and approve him, Nancy Russell needs to be let into the meeting.
Nancy.
She's in the audience. So somebody could talk to the CT people. Okay.
Nancy Russell.
Yes, Nancy.
Thank you, Peter.
Thanks,
Well,
Peter.
actually, I didn't notice until other people pointed it out, but
She was hiding.
We try, but sometimes we lose track. There's a lot of things going on. So you will need a motion to approve Adam
right.
Right,
Rick's
exactly.
application.
Yep.
So I would like to move that we approve Adam Ricker to be appointed to the town school meeting committee.
I'll second.
So we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion before we vote? Hearing none. All in favor?
I
No,
just
go
like
ahead.
to put in that I'm really happy that Adam, you're laughing, but we're going to work you on this one. No, I'm kidding. I worked with Adam before when he was on the board of directors of another local nonprofit, and he's one of my favorite people to work with. So hi, Adam, and thanks so much for stepping up for this.
Like I said, not a lot of separation, folks. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Congratulations, Adam.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Adam.
Thanks, Adam.
Adam, as you go, don't hesitate to reach out with any questions or
Yeah.
concerns or thoughts. Happy to sit with you and go over some things.
Will do.
All right, great.
Awesome. Nice to see
Thanks.
you all, Adam.
Thank you.
Okay. So being that we've got that,
Nancy has a question.
yes, go ahead.
Me? My apologies for being late. I was involved in a very lengthy discussion with VSBA and I had to wait till it was over before I could leave. So thank you for letting me in.
Well, thanks for doing double duty. Let's see. So Tom, does it make sense to do the, well, okay. Let's go ahead with the facilities piece and then we can come back to the town meeting cycle after.
And what I'm gonna do before you start, just for the audience, there is one piece of the documents that pertains to this, and it's just a draft article on the warning.
Right.
Which was recommended by our auditor. I still have to have the attorney, Paul Giuliani, review it, but I put it on there for your consideration tonight. After your discussion, I'll be looking for a number if you're gonna move forward with dedicating some of the fund balance to the facilities reserve. So I put a warning on there just for your discussion.
Right.
So,
Well, if you could just explain to folks the fact that, by statute, we're required to do that.
yeah, so I don't know what you want to do first, but if you want me to explain that first, and then you can have the discussion about the fund balance and how much, does that make sense, Russ?
Yeah, it does to me.
Yes.
Roy, if you could put, it's called annual school district warnings. And these are only a draft. They're probably 85% complete with the accurate information, but we need to determine some numbers, put in some numbers tonight. So the one that we're going to talk about now is Article 4. And I'll read it just in case for some reason people can't see it. But again, this is just a draft. I still have to have the board's attorney on the town meeting matters review it and make sure it's worded to his satisfaction. But shall the voters of the Hartford School District authorize the Board of School Directors to allocate up to X, which will be the number you discussed tonight if you choose to go forward, of its current fund balance to establish or fund the existing. And the reason I left that, because you do have an existing account, but you could also establish a new fund. So it's up to the board whether you actually want to put money into the existing account or if you want to keep those separate because of that 5-year clock that runs. So the Hartford School District Capital Projects Reserve Fund for the purpose of funding current and future capital expenditures for the maintenance and repairs of school-owned property, including but not limited to roof replacements and repairs. The thing that's nice about this is that it gives you the option of, one, determining how much of the fund balance you want to dedicate to capital projects, but it also gives you the latitude of moving on a project when you feel like the timing is correct. So as far as maybe the price or the cost, supplies of materials, all of that is kind of up in the air right now with COVID, and we still see some supply shortages, and labor is certainly at an all-time high. So that's something that we're really going to want to monitor as you consider which projects you want to do. So this article is really nice in that it gives the board a lot of flexibility that it needs to move when it feels like the time is right and the project is at a reasonable cost to the taxpayers. And I would really recommend that you add this to the existing fund. I think it's confusing to have another fund unless you're expecting to spend the existing reserve fund on something else, like immediately. I don't think we are. I think we were talking about adding to the existing funds and then spending all of that on a certain project. That's what I had to say.
Yeah, that would make sense to me. And I think because we could track by year what additions and subtractions, so we would be able to prove compliance with the 5-year rule type thing. So I would think just adding it to the existing makes most sense myself.
So I would correct that language. If that's the preference of the board for the next meeting, I would correct that language. And just as, yep,
Have you run that past our attorneys to be certain that we can actually extend the 5-year period by putting in additional funds and do not need to start with a new fund?
yes, that's one of the questions I have for him, is that exact question. The other go ahead. Well, the other problem we have, the timing this year is a little bit off with the town meeting and the regularly scheduled school board meetings. Our second meeting in January is just a few days shy of when the town clerk is comfortable receiving these approved and signed warnings from all of us. The select board has the same issue as the school board. So I think since there's still too many questions on these two documents to move this forward tonight. So I think we're going to have another meeting sometime next week just to finalize these two warnings.
Right. So
just to the side.
If I remember correctly, the existing fund needs to be used by the end of June.
Correct. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
Given that and the slight possibility that the effects of COVID and so forth may wash out of our economy before we get through with the entire project, and the valiant job that you and the entire administrative team have always done to try to come in under budget and so forth, I would actually prefer establishment of a separate capital project reserve fund, just so you can absolutely guarantee and document that the funds don't have to turn into fairy dust at the end of June if by some chance you manage to come in under budget or something. I would hate to find out that you can't distinguish between the first and second tranche of money put into the fund after you've had a late conversation with our lawyers and find ourselves in an unpleasant place.
Right.
So Tom, to add to the question to Attorney Giuliani, in naming, that second fund, and hopefully this could help Russ's question about the confusion. Knowing that the existing fund needs to be utilized by the end, of June, maybe putting some sort of a COVID-related piece in the title so that it's easy to delineate the difference between, the two. And because of changes that are going on throughout, state and state government, as the other ask would be, if we could consolidate those at a later date, so that we've, I think that might resolve that, that question to a degree.
Or possibly we could name it the 2027 reserve fund, that being the date in which and year in which it would need to be expended by. So
that would work.
There are some naming possibilities there that would allow us to separate the funds and keep track of when we need to use it up by.
Yeah.
I'll be glad to ask him those questions, and if there's any uncertainty, I will have him attend the next meeting so we can hash it out.
Okay. That would be great. So
Jim or
Russ,
Jacob, is there any input from either of you on that? Either of those items? I know you talked with the auditor at length about the reserve funds. I don't see an issue really with keeping them separate, just because our accounting is so careful. I can't imagine that even within the fund, it would get mixed up as to what was, old money basically and what's new money, because it's all in the audit. It's all crystal clear really in the accounting.
I'd just like to add that the other account that's part of that 5-year is the repair reserve, which has just a little over 17,000 in it as well.
right.
And what does the capital reserve fund have?
Capital reserve account has $415,139 as of December 31st.
So those are the two that we want to make sure we expend. I believe we have till the end of 2022. Not just till June. Is that correct, Jake or Jim?
Is it a calendar year stipulation or a fiscal year?
I'll have to take another look at the statute.
Okay. Because that would play into putting the RFP out for the bids and what have you.
Mhm. There may also be a process for extending that timeline if you have like an imminent project sort of identified.
Well, yeah, we have several just about shovel ready, so. Especially the roofs.
The only comment I have on that is that we ordered a new garage door in August. It still hasn't shown up.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Too typical.
And we've heard many stories like that. So,
Well, just
situation
look
like
at the
that.
shipping cart containers, they're all over. At least it's not stuck in the Suez Canal, right?
So do we need to take any action at this moment with regard to the reserve funds, or is that waiting until final determination on our next meeting?
I thought, were you going to discuss, dollar amounts, potential dollar amounts, given that you have the auditor's report, or are you not ready to do that at this point?
We're supposed to do the, I think we're gonna get a synopsis of the report, since we had it available online, for everyone, to review.
We do have hard copies here tonight, but
Right.
obviously most of you are virtual, so.
Yeah. Well, I've got mine. I know Russ has his. It's good late night reading. But
Have they confirmed the $800,000 number, which I believe is what we mentioned last time?
I believe so, yes.
Yes.
I think that's the number that the administration would be proposing. I don't know what the board's comfortable with. Or Jake, if you're prepared to discuss that a little, just so, even as a primer to what's going to be discussed when we actually have the auditor here. Is that helpful?
I would think so, because that way,
yeah,
in theory, we've got most of the number down and it's more of the
Exactly.
semantics.
That's what I thought, and so the rest of the board is aware of the thinking around that.
We have about a $3.8 million balance. Right now, pending board approval, we have $1 million going back to offset taxes for next year. And we have 800,000 going towards capital projects, and then keeping $2 million for cash flows, because we're funding, the tech center and the collaboratives, and really until mid-December, late January, we're not getting those tuitions rolling in, so we're cash flowing them for the first couple months.
A long-standing practice, which has saved us lots of money.
Exactly. We don't have to borrow.
So,
And a lot of districts, just so board members who aren't as familiar with the finance understand, a lot of school districts do borrow on a regular basis, just waiting for their tax proceeds from the town. So the town collects the taxes and then sends them to the state, and they're sort of redistributed to the school districts. So that's a factor in our district, but even more so is what Jake just mentioned, which is we are paying all the costs for the collaborative programs while we await the tuition funds that come in to, basically reimburse, provide us the revenue to run those programs. So that's a little different than most districts, because we have, the RAP program, the HARP program, and the Regional Resource Center program. So it's a lot of money.
Right.
Right.
There's only 4 other districts in the state that have a similar makeup, because they run collaborative programs and they also run tech centers. And there's 16 tech centers in the state. So that budget anomaly that Jacob was referring to, isn't a regular occurrence for every district. So.
and as I pointed out last time we discussed this, $2 million sounds like an awful lot of money until you realize what our payroll is. We are the largest payroll in town by far.
Yeah, and we've gone over and over this just to make sure we're clear with everyone, all the townspeople, that we have the right amount of money set aside for cash flow.
Right.
And that saves the taxpayers a lot of money. If we had to do short-term loans, it would be very expensive.
Exactly.
But, our payroll, Jake, each payroll we pay every 2 weeks is approximately how much?
About $1 million every 2 weeks.
Yep, just about.
So with that, I would like to move that we allocate $800,000 of the existing surplus for augmentation or establishment of a new capital reserve fund, depending on what the lawyer says.
I'll second that.
So we have a motion and a second to establish a second capital reserve fund in the amount of $800,000. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? So moved.
Thank you very much.
And those are pending legal consultation. Next piece, Tom?
Was that it, Russ? Did we address everything?
I think in that part we did, yes.
Okay. So the next piece up would be the budget, correct?
Yeah.
The final draft
Yeah.
of the budget, and Roy's gonna display it and Jake is going to talk to it.
So this is the current budget as of today. There's been some couple minor changes, and it's been kind of flying by the seat of our pants. we did not get the final equalized pupil from the state yet. And also the state is working on a revision to the tech center 6-semester average, which is going to affect everyone's budget. So that's been a little bit challenging. The last number that we got back was the CLA, and I'll talk about that once we get to the tax page. But this page is just the revenues and expenditures for all the funds.
Jake, can I just interrupt quick?
Sure.
Do you have an idea of when we can expect those numbers? Have they given you any?
The state said today. So hopefully by Friday. I mean, we have a VASBO meeting Friday, so hopefully we have a better update by then, but everyone's certainly waiting on those numbers. But the thing is, the equalized pupil may not even change for us. So.
Right. So the reason I ask is because Lisa O'Neill, the town clerk, really wants us to file the warrants by the end of next week. So that's why I talked about having she needs to order the ballot on the 27th. So we're really up against the wall with getting it done next week. Just so the board knows, I think we're trying to schedule a meeting next week. Not instead of, but in addition to the 26th, so maybe the 19th, so that we can put in the final equalized pupil number, which might not change. And that 6-semester average will change the budget, and we'll also need to finalize the warnings. So it may not be a long meeting, but it'll be focused primarily on those 3 things.
Right. We've had to do that in the past. Not often. I think in the last 14 years, it's only happened once before. So it's something in that calendar cycle, that creates that anomaly, that puts us in a position where we can't push it out to the second meeting,
I tried my hardest to get it all done for tonight, but it just wasn't possible with all those factors missing.
Right.
Of course, there's been a lot of discussion regarding the Act 173, which is the funding for the special education, about whether or not that's going to happen. And there's been a lot of talk from the field, certainly with concerns from a lot of districts about whether or not that's going to happen because it affects the budget so much.
Yeah. Jake, somebody asked from the public what VASBO stands for.
VASBO is the Vermont Association of School Business Officials. So it's a group of the business managers for school districts that get together once a month with updates from the AOE and the fields and all our partners.
Each of the administrators has a professional organization at the state level, just like the Vermont School Boards Association, the SBA, the superintendents have an organization, the special ed directors, the Vermont Principals Association for principals. So, and they give us quite a bit of guidance and assistance and colleagueship, which is really important in the predicament we're in this year with COVID and last year too, but just so the public knows.
Jacob, this is Nancy. Part of the reason that I was late coming into this meeting is because the pro tem was talking to us at the SBA tonight, and she was saying that, especially regarding Act 173, that they probably won't know anything until the middle of next week regarding that. She's, what can you say?
Right.
I just want to pass along that that's what she was telling us earlier this evening. And that brings up my question is when we've done this budget, have we projected in our minds how this will affect us, which if it goes one way or the other, if it goes with option A or option B?
with this current budget, we're assuming that Act 173 passes and goes through with what it's going to. We've cut back a little bit, so we're taking a little bit more of a conservative approach where the state says, you're going to get this much money.
Mhm.
We've accounted for, well, maybe what if we don't get all that?
Right. Okay, all right.
It's good. Nancy, that's a terrific question. Thank you so much for asking it. Because it's been something that's been on the minds of all of the business directors as well as the superintendents is this really has an impact on everyone's budget. Some positively, some negatively. For us, what's been projected is positive. However, that means we sort of estimate the revenue at a higher rate, and if it doesn't happen, then we're going to have a shortfall. So we have to be extremely careful. Some districts have estimated, well, have been told they're going to lose money, and they have to raise more in taxes. So their
Right.
tax rate might be inflated a bit by the loss of money with Act 173. Just for the public, 173 is the act that basically does away with special ed reimbursement for expenses and creates a block grant. And the block grant is based on basically what you need, what you've needed for the last several years in reimbursement. There is a formula they've used, but we're actually gaining a little bit of money, which is positive. What happens in reality, we don't know. But
Right.
if you ever want to know about Act 173, I'm happy to talk about it, because in a previous life, I was a special ed director. So I know a lot about special ed funding and the benefits of the reimbursement formula versus a block grant. But what their concern was, the reimbursement sort of incentivizes the coding or eligibility of special ed students, and the sort of increased or inflated services to get more revenue, more reimbursement. Whereas a block grant will one, give districts the flexibility to spend the money as they see fit to meet the needs of the students, but it will also decrease that desire to sort of inflate costs or add expensive services that may not really be necessary or what's best for kids. So it's an interesting conversation, and I think because there's so many winners and losers, you're seeing the legislators really debate it and try to determine when they're going to actually implement it, and maybe it's not the year to do that.
Jacob, by what factor did we sort of discount, or how much did we sort of discount what we could get versus what's in the budget? Ballpark it.
Let me just bring up.
I think originally it was anticipated we were going to get an additional $500,000 in revenue.
Yes.
In special ed. But I'm not 100% comfortable with that number. If we budgeted 500,000 additional revenue and we don't get it, we're basically going to be cutting into our general fund to pay special ed services, and that could
Exactly.
I understand, but
it's the usual.
But I understand that, and I don't disagree, but so if we think we could get 500,000, what number did we put in there?
We decreased it by about 100,000.
Okay, so we about 400,000 margin of error, which I understand. I just want to make sure.
Right. And I think it needs to be pointed out that in all the years I've been on the school board, whatever budget we have come up with has always been dependent in its final consequences on where the state came out. And we have never known in advance where that was going to be. And it's not due to lack of diligence on our part. It's due to the fact that that's the way the state has structured things. And our financial team has always built that uncertainty into the budgets in the past, which is a good thing.
Thank you.
It is something, I don't want to sound cavalier in any way about this. I mean, we've worked really hard to try to determine what they will actually fund and what we'll do if they don't give us that amount of money. It's a big dilemma. It's a big problem. And Jake and Jim and I have worked really hard to try to figure out how to accurately predict if they're going to come through and give us that $500,000 if they're going to go through and implement the law this year, and what would happen if they didn't give us the $500,000. So it's a dilemma, and likewise the other districts are in probably even a more difficult position with a tremendous reduction in funding.
So one other question. With the weighting, the pupil weighting task force results, what impact will the final decision regarding the weights have?
Jacob, have you heard any had any reports from NOE on that? Or is
We have not heard word one about any updates lately about the weighting study from the AOE.
All I've heard in the several trainings that I've been to and discussions is that we will be one of the benefactors. So we will do better than we're doing now with the current weighting formula, but I don't know exactly how much.
See, the big discussion right now is English language learners and the disparity across the state in that category from district to district. And that is the big question right now. I mean, real, you know, the House Ed and Senate Ed are both taking it up this week. So it'll be interesting to see the outcome.
Yeah, and again, for the public listening, a lot of people aren't aware of how that equalized pupil count and number is determined, and the weighting is what's behind that. So certain students are, for lack of a better term, worth more or reimbursed at a higher rate than other students. So high school students are the highest weighting. Elementary students are pre-K the lowest weighting. And then students with special needs, homelessness, other disadvantage or Title I eligible, so free and reduced eligible students get more weighting. English language learners. So there's a lot of weighting factors they're talking about, sort of simplifying that, but ELL is English language learners. So people who move to this country or move to the state or the district that don't speak English fluently, and there's several different degrees of that and how much service they get, but they are weighted more heavily because there's more expense that's not borne by special ed or any other fund to offset their needs. So to kind of help the district with those more expensive services. And that is an area for Hartford that's grown, and we're very proud of it. So for the first year ever, since I've been here, we've always had one full-time ELL teacher. We need to probably expand that by at least 50%, maybe 100%. So and hire a second teacher because of the needs. So the weighting, that's a good thing for the legislature to be studied carefully because it's necessary. some districts have a huge population of ELL learners and they need a lot more support. So that weighting, that's what makes this so complicated. In your total student population, they would determine how many students qualify as ELL, and they would apply that higher rate to that population, which then would increase your block grant. And so it's a complicated formula, and they are taking it really seriously. It's probably one of the biggest topics going on right now in the legislature, right? Right, Kevin?
Very
Yep.
big.
Yeah,
Very big, yeah.
that it is.
So,
May I ask another question while we're talking about the ELL
Sure.
students? I'm sorry. If I don't do it now, forget it. My mind's too warped today. Translators. So I know that there's a third family that has come in now, that we're still trying to find a translator for the Portuguese speaking children. And I understand that there is a person that works out at Adequiche that speaks Portuguese. Could we not enlist her? I know she's already doing stuff, but she's not really working as a translator out there now. Is that something we could discuss later, maybe?
no, I can assure you we're working on that. I don't want
Oh, I know we are. I know we are.
Yeah, too many details, but yes, certainly.
Okay.
See that is one of the difficult parts of the discussion when you look at ELL,
Mm-hmm.
because some people would say, geez, I didn't realize we had any students that didn't speak English as a first language. We have schools in the state, and there's one in particular that in that high school, they speak 35 different languages.
Yeah.
That's a fact. That's a
amazing.
fact. So that being said, you know, the variables around the rest of the state. So if we've got 3 or 4, getting a translator, getting support services for that student, those are those English as English language learners that, you know, are our kids that we need to support. So, you know, that's part of why it's so difficult.
Yeah, a couple things to clarify is, yeah, we definitely are aware of that person, and I believe Roy does all this work, and we've already worked out a contract with that person, Nancy.
Oh, good.
But just so the public knows too, that a lot of people don't understand this, ELL is primarily focused on helping the student navigate in an English-speaking school. It's not the translation piece. It's helping them to get through with the English. The translation is generally for the parents to understand what's going in the school, or the guardian, or any other interested party. So to speak, like if someone was to speak Portuguese or Spanish or Italian or French, that is generally around the communication with the adults in its life to get them through the system and help them do what a parent does for their child. But as far as ELL in the school, a lot of people think those ELL teachers need to know several different languages.
No.
A lot of the time, they don't know any languages. Not all they do, but what they do is help that student use the language that they have, the English that they have, to learn what they need to learn in school. So it's a little different than what a lot of people think, you know. They're very skilled, but they don't do translation. They don't do talking in the kid's native language.
See, each you know, each case is unique, and that's the other thing, you know. So depending on the needs of the whole family, you know, you might provide a wider range of services for one family, whereas not so much, you know, for another.
It's actually a really neat system.
Yeah,
We're
yeah.
Getting too much off the.
No,
off the-
but it does affect our budget. That's the big thing, you know.
You do a very careful evaluation and determine what level of need the student has.
Mm.
And they come up with a rating, and then that basis, that determines how much service a child gets in ELL.
Just as a quick question about the ELL programs, I don't really know that much about them, but are they at all of the elementary schools, the middle school, and the high school, or just some schools?
No, I'd say everywhere.
All of them.
Mhm.
And we have had quite an increase, which is.
Yeah. And that's why this topic is right at the, let's say, the tip of the iceberg right now. You know, because it is so front and center, you know, in
I
the
believe
discussion.
that's why we're seen as one of the bigger benefactors of the new weighting studies, because of the increase in ELL students.
Yeah.
And are there also ELL supports in like the Regional Resource Center or the HEART program, or have we not really had a need for that yet?
Well, I don't know the exact need in those, but there would be support if there was a need.
Right.
Well, I don't know exactly, but if there's a need, we would
Right.
provide it.
Right.
Because it is needs based. So let's continue.
Coach, I just have one quick question for Jacob before he continues, since we're on. The 1351 that's in your worksheet, I forget, was that a guesstimate or just a conservative? How was that determined, just so for informational purposes? I know it's not the actual.
Equalized proof number.
Yeah.
For 2023.
2023, thank you.
That is something that we get from the state. And that's the final piece that we were supposed to have today.
I understand that, but just for my own information and thinking about going forward, you had to put a placeholder in there. What was the rationale for the placeholder that's in there for fiscal
That
20?
1351 was the draft one. And of course, like any good data from the state, there's always this business manager pointed this out because apparently there was a big kerfuffle up at the state with all the population data. So Brad James said, well, let me run a 2.0 version with everyone's corrections and everything else. So the 2.0 should be the final, but that 1351 that we have now is draft one.
Okay, thank you.
And that does come, Russ and the public, that does come from the Agency of Education. Because they're the ones that actually do that development piece on the budget.
All right, so the page we're on now is just the revenues and expenses for all funds. So really when we're talking about the warrants, we're going to be talking about 43,940,588 pending any changes with the yields and the tech center 6-semester average, if we can get that before we put it on the warrant. And then going down to the next page.
Can you say that number again? Is it?
Right.
Just so I'm clear.
43,940,588.
Okay, that's what I thought.
So then this next sheet is basically just a summary of the changes. The only changes that we've made to this, we increased the contracted food service up 100,000, just based on where we are now with, because we have two programs. We have the Abbey Group doing every other school except White River School, and White River School running their own program. White River School is doing very well. The district one, just based on with COVID and everything else, it's been very challenging. So we're anticipating that we're going to need a little bit more support there next year.
Yeah.
And then
I think just so the public knows, we did have a question about how it was going at the White River School. So that was great, Jake. You answered it without me even asking it from someone online.
The kids
Yeah.
love it. I've heard nothing but good things about it. The kids are really enjoying trying new foods, and Scott seems to be doing a very nice job down there.
And just a little bit of detail on why the other schools and the new Abbey group is not going as well as, I hate to say blame something else on COVID, but it's a big piece of it is COVID. Kids are eating in the classrooms to be a little bit safer because they take the masks off, obviously, to eat. And that creates some really big problems with food quality. I mean,
And not only that, but our
it's
numbers
hard.
are.
Go ahead.
I was just going to add, not only is it the food quality, but the number of lunches is down as well, just because more people are, they want the control over the lunch and they're bringing it from home.
Yeah. By the time the food is plated and distributed to the rooms, it's cold. There's a lot more manpower when you're trying to, take the food from the cafeteria and deliver it to each classroom in a timely way. So it's more costly and it's less, warm, less, not nutritious, but, just they don't like it as much by the time it gets to the classrooms. It's harder to manage.
Yeah.
All right, so another change that we have is additional coaching staff. When we're talking about coaching staff, we're talking about educational coaches. Right now, they're all funded for the most part by Title II. And we were fortunate enough that we had some carryover money that we were able to carry over into this year, but just basing it off this year's budget, we're not going to have enough money in Title II next year to cover our current needs. So we need to move some of that money, start to move it over to the general fund. So that's what that is. And then.
Go ahead, Jacob. I'll ask my question after you're done. I apologize.
No, go ahead, Russ.
And the reason for that is that like COVID recovery efforts to booster the educational learning that suffered through the pandemic.
Right. To support our teachers.
Yeah.
Because when we talk about the coaching, it's teachers working with teachers.
Okay, thank you.
And then next on the list, we have increase of $225,000 for out of district sped tuition. We found that there's a lot more higher need when what we've been budgeting because we have a lot of out of district placements over at Granite Hill and those types of facilities. Specific facility repairs, we're leaving at $439,000 to work with for next year. And then obviously a decrease in next year's budget is that this fiscal year that we're in now, it'll be our last payment for Covell House. So next year that won't be in the budget. And then transportation contract, we're just about finalized. I know there was one clause that we kicked back, so we're just about at signing. So that's going to be about a 2% increase. So that's the.
We have one question from the public about middle school assistant principal. We had a middle school assistant principal for years. Just before COVID, we decided that we wanted to go with a different model where we had middle school, coaches and curriculum instruction, assessment staff to really do a better job with the curriculum. But through the pandemic, we found that we really do need the assistant principal. So we've added the assistant principal back in. We do expect to see offsets in reductions of teaching staff to be able to, have that pretty much budget neutral. But we definitely feel like we need the assistant principal with the behavior concerns that we have at the middle school. Jake, or I don't know if you have anything to add to that, but I'm assuming that's in the, which line is it? The principal administrative services.
That'd be in the 2410s on the function page, which is the next page.
Okay, sorry if I jumped in.
Move it
So
to the
that's-
next page, Jacob.
Yes. So this is the tax sheet, which is probably the most prominent of the entire packet. The thing I'll point out is we did get the CLA back at 86.76%, which was a little bit less than what we had planned on. We had planned for a 5% decrease. And obviously it went down a little bit more than that. And obviously, the thing I'll say about that is below 85%, you're in redoing the CLA, reevaluation, yeah.
Exactly.
And they will be there next year.
Yeah, based on, what we're seeing.
Yeah, because it's a 3-year average, so in this year's 3-year average, you still have one pre-COVID hike, or whatever you want to call it, inflation.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Then going down through, obviously the yields get finalized much later, but we're assuming option B, because option A is the state has a lot of this surplus with all the federal funds that they've received. But the feedback that we've received from the field is don't count on any of that. You're probably not even going to see it. So we've taken the much more conservative approach with using the yields from option B. So given all this information, that puts us at about a 1.8% increase on the tax rate, with applying $1 million from the surplus to offset taxes.
You might want to mention what it does to people who are not taxed on the residential property tax.
So if you're based on the income, it's a 8.7% decrease.
And again, this is tentative based on finalization of figures.
Correct.
Exactly. And those will be set by the Ways and Means Committee. After town meeting, which is bizarre, but that's.
All right. So are we at the point where we should approve next year's budget?
Yes. Yes.
All right. I would like to move that we approve an expenditure of $43,940. $43,940,588 as the FY 2023 budget for the school district.
Is there a second?
I will second that.
So we have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
So we have 3, 1, 1. Is that an accurate count?
Are you saying 3 of 4, 1 against and 1 abstaining?
Absent.
Absent, okay, yep.
And not to put the no vote on on the spot, but as I recall, there was a specific concern about timing issues.
I'm sorry, what was that, Coach?
I said not to put you on the spot, my friend, but I think that, would you care to explain that timing issue that you were concerned about? You know, the chicken and the egg.
Actually, I don't remember what you're talking about.
Oh, okay. No, I think you were concerned about not having the audit prior to the determining of the final number.
Okay, yeah, that's part of it. There's some other
Yeah.
factors, but
Yeah, but that was the one that kind of stuck. I do listen.
I know you do. No problem.
Okay.
Is it worth going backwards and discussing, you know, what the problems are so that we possibly could have, you know, a more unanimous vote, or is that none of my business?
I mean, I think it was approved, so I'm not sure
Yeah, I'm
that,
not
that,
sure.
that anything needs to be discussed. I mean,
Okay.
I have some reservations about it being overly conservative, i.e. we're raising more money through taxes than is absolutely necessary. That's my concern in a nutshell.
And I had a feeling that it was the conservative nature that, but this is probably the most difficult one we've had in a number of years, you know, because of those variables.
And I guess I would say, even though I voted no, I support the effort and the rationale. It just, for me, it was just, since we've run surpluses, such big surpluses the last couple of years, and we're in a much better financial position due to your leadership and Jim's and Jacob's, I don't think we need to be as conservative as we have been in the past.
It just seems to me, with, you know, without going on a limb, I don't know if it's my place, but it would be nice to discuss that and get that, you know, if there's some accommodations or some, you know, modifications or a way to come to a better consensus so that everyone is in favor. I think it's important for the board, you know, in these times, just to present a united front rather than, you know. So whatever we can do, I mean, I don't know if we can go backwards, but it's up to the board. I just throw it out there as.
And I mean, we could also have that discussion at the next week's meeting, at which point I might be able to resolve some of my concerns.
And see, that's when we get the rest of the information, and we get the approval from the attorney, Mr. Giuliani, about our language issues, you know, so that we know what our reserve funds will look like specifically, and we know what the exact value of the warrant is. So the saga continues. Okay. So we did facilities, reserve fund, budget
So
balance.
just to make sure I'm understanding, your objection is not to the amount spent, but to the assumptions under which the revenue projections have been made.
There's also some assumptions, I think, on the expense side, but
Yeah.
it's a combination of things, Peter. And I mean, right now, that's the way I feel, but I'm certainly willing to revisit it. And I certainly have no problem being the presenter and saying this, I think this is a realistic, or I'm comfortable. It just, I think it's important. So it's not like I have a huge philosophical difference. I just think we need to take into effect that we've run surpluses, which is a credit to the leadership of Tom, because we haven't spent money to spend money, but we're in a much better financial place now than we were 3 or 4 years ago. And I don't think we need to be as conservative in some of the assumptions behind the budget.
See, we've been, and I get what you're saying, Russ. We've been, fiscally frugal,
Mm-hmm.
and, not to say, spend because we have it, but there are possible considerations that, could affect, that, staying within that philosophy, but still address some of that increased revenue, because it's a statewide issue too. I mean, we're dealing with that at every level of state government as well.
Coach, if I can just mention 2 items.
Sure.
Russ, food service this year, you're going to run a $200,000 deficit, which was unplanned for, which was information that we didn't have when we created the last budget. Last year, in last year's budget, when I say last year's, I should say 22 budget, the current year, you had 0 in for specific building projects. And I just want to mention, you're in the negative by $250,000 currently, as of December 31st. So you may end up with a surplus this year. I just think you may be a lot closer than you have been in past years.
And I guess if maybe part of the way I could bridge it is if within reason, because we are fortune telling, but in the next meeting, we maybe firm up a guesstimate in that regard. Because that way, that would be some tangible evidence to prove me wrong. Because I'm willing, and I guess one area I understand about the food service, because costs are just outrageous.
Yeah.
We would have to be conservative there, because we can't anticipate that food costs are going to go down and salaries are going to go, or wages are going to go down. And I understand that last year, our specific repair line was below what it was historically, because we were concerned about the impact of the pandemic on people's ability to pay taxes. So I'm okay with both of those. I mean, one area, and perhaps I should ask the question, is regarding the health insurance and the HRAs.
Oh, yeah.
And the full funding of that. Because we have a surplus, so this may be a time where we would have to be perhaps more like a traditional business and take a calculated risk.
And I do think that's up to the board. I mean, the board can say, look, we only want to cover 65% of what we project. That's our guess. And I think the board can do that.
And that would be more in line with my thinking. And I apologize, I didn't specifically say that, because during it, but still, that is my feeling. But I also think it is perhaps a little premature to vote before we know all the the best idea possible on what the rates are going to be, so we give our best estimate of tax increases. So that's why I'm very willing, without having a huge discussion next time, to reconsider once we have more certainty, hopefully, about some of these issues.
I would really appreciate the board, because I just didn't know there was a concern, so I'm sorry if I'm putting a member on the spot, but I didn't know there was.
Don't be, that's fine, Tom, I'm not.
No, that's part of the process.
We didn't do a thorough enough process to understand that there was, pretty major concerns with the budget. I'd rather attempt to accommodate those concerns and revisit the budget number than have a member not supportive of it.
Well, the question, at hand, and that's something that's outside of everyone's control, and that's probably why part of the concern, is the number that we were expecting to get today, which was version 2.0 of the equalized pupil, would give us. But the thing is, it's the yields that we never got, until town meeting. It's this other one. We extrapolate to the best of our ability, the yield, but that equalized pupil we generally have in our hand from the state early January. And that's the one that we carry all the way through. And we don't have that one.
No, and I just will say this, Coach, because you know better than most of us. The Act 173, we're gambling 300,000. We don't know that we're going to get that, and I mean, I just think how inappropriate at this stage of the budgeting process, because there are some districts that have passed their budget based on Act 173. And are you saying that state really is thinking about pulling this off the table?
Yeah, that's the scary part. And I think that's part of the need for a certain level of conservatism. But we come to agreement, and my thought at this point, is we will be meeting again, next week, to complete, and we do have, a bottom line, and some of that, is still, adjustable based on that equalized pupil, so we might have to, adjust, that final number, because we've had to do that in the past before.
Sure.
That's happened.
So let me ask if between now and the next meeting, we get a more favorable equalized pupil count, or something changes. Yeah, I mean, do you want me to come up with different scenarios to try to, mediate this difference, or compromise a little, or is there any guidance from the board on what I might do when we get that the equalized pupil count, so that I can maybe help the board to be more in alignment, rather than come to the next meeting not really knowing. Is there something, different scenarios so that the board can consider?
What's your thought, Russ?
Well, okay, fair enough, Tom. So maybe and I didn't have a specific percentage in mind, but maybe we look at that HRA percentage and adjust that and run a scenario there.
Sure.
Irrationally, the one that bothers me the most.
And I know it has, it's interesting. I wasn't surprised when you went to that, Russ, because that has been like I won't call it, well, the analogy would be the bee in your bonnet. That one has bothered you, for a while. So but that's okay,
Coach, what percentage would you like us to use on the HRA for what you think you're going to expend?
Can I ask you, what is, right now at 100%, what's the number? Just so I have context. And again, it doesn't have to be precise. Is it 1 million? Is it 800?
Where's that? HRA.
Line 7.
Jake, do you have the teacher database?
Yep.
And it would be way over on the right.
So we're at 1.1 million according to the sheet.
Oh, yeah. Peter's got it right there. 1.1.
Yeah.
So
And with a 5% increase.
with the 5% increase.
That's on the insurance, not the HRA.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So maybe a scenario at 75%.
Okay.
Because we're projecting that's the 100% projection.
Yes. Yes, it is.
I get a little nervous about playing around with that in the face of the current health issues.
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
I don't, maybe you can inform me, but my assumption is that when the chances of getting very sick are higher, one is more likely to take advantage of something like the HRA than one would when you looked at it and said, I'm probably going to be fine.
HRA is the first dollar of the health cost.
Yep.
First dollar.
Yep. And we agreed to pick that up.
Right.
And if there is significant expenditures, which we could easily expect, we have had a number of individuals working for the district who have gotten quite sick. We could find ourselves spending that.
The 100%. Yeah.
The one factor that does impact this is you did have a vaccination mandate.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a direct correlation.
Which I wish was a better guarantee of not getting infected. But I would point out the very first person to be infected with Omicron was a middle-aged person or younger than middle-aged person who was fully vaccinated. So
Yeah, that is a little scary.
As far as high costs, though, I mean, the vaccinated are like 91% lower risk of death and 74% lower risk of being in intensive care. I don't know.
Yes, no, it's definitely worth doing. It's just not foolproof,
Right.
or guaranteed, I should say, because you're a fool if you don't do it, in my opinion. It's just that I could understand wanting, with a little bit more experience around what the rates are against the HRA, based on sort of an actuarial experience kind of thing, and saying we've been overly cautious. We don't have, as far as I know, a whole lot of experience yet as to what the rates could be of claiming against that money. And right now is a time, God knows, I hope by the start of the next school year, we're well and truly past this all.
Right.
But I've been hoping for a long time.
Yeah, we felt that last year, didn't we?
Yeah. I mean, 2 years is 2 years too long, but it's not
Yep.
guaranteed to be the end of it.
Mm.
And I will say, just so everyone knows, last year or the prior year, fiscal year, it wasn't first dollar coverage. It was in back.
Mhm.
So this year is the first year that we've had first dollar coverage with the HRA. So it's a game changer as far as how much you're going to use. I don't have a guess.
Jim, would you explain to our listening audience what you mean by first dollar pay and last dollar pay?
In
I
other
think
words,
there's probably some that don't realize what that is.
sure. So the health Blue Cross Blue Shield, who we're insured with, before they pay $1, the school district pays the HRA amount. Is that correct, Jake?
Correct. That is correct.
Right. So
Okay.
with the prior health agreement, the employee was on the hook for, the first $400 if you're a single person, and then the HRA would kick in. Whereas this year, the HRA is $1 first, and after you've spent that allotment, you're on the hook for the next, $400, $800.
Right. And then the health Blue Cross Blue Shield cuts in.
That's in.
What's the deductible?
Yes.
So what my suggestion here is that we do run a scenario and see what the actual impact is when we have complete numbers and under the various scenarios, and then we can have an informed discussion. And I will ponder, because I don't necessarily disagree, but I guess my counter to some of Peter's points would be, yes, the 2 million that we haven't allocated to anything helps for cash flow, but even if we spend the 1.1 million, we're not likely to spend it in the first 3 months of the year. So if we were over whatever's in the budget, we have the ability to cover that. Unlike
Correct.
some years in the past where the fund balance was close to zero and it was more, would have been more of a concern.
Well, and that's a $275 difference between what we have in the budget and what Russ suggested. So it's definitely manageable.
So what scenarios would you like run? A 90% funding, a 80% funding? What exactly are you looking for?
I'm comfortable with because I guess at some point, if we run a 90%, then that really isn't going to necessarily change much. So I think,
it's really risk rated.
yeah. I mean, I suppose it is a reduction in what's raised from the taxpayers, which is a consideration for me. But I'm comfortable just running the 75% scenario because
which was 825,000 versus 1.1 million.
Exactly. So that's a significant number. See what it results in, and then we all can make an informed decision. Because it won't, if we go over, it won't bankrupt us.
No, Jake or Jim probably can figure that out right now, right? With just reducing the dollar amount of the budget by 275,000. What difference does that make on the tax rate? We've done that before with the calculator.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yep.
So we're subtracting $275,000 from 43 million to 940,588.
Yeah.
Right.
We've done that
And-
before.
And the one thing I would point out is that while we have been conservative and therefore theoretically raising more money than we need to, we're already paying down the bill by $1 million.
Correct.
Yep.
Jake, are you able to put the tax sheet up on the, so everybody can see it?
Yeah, do you have the live tax calculator?
But I would, yeah. it certainly makes sense if we get a new estimated
Roy, do you want to
Pupil.
stop sharing?
equivalent pupil.
Can you stop sharing and let? Do you have the rights, Jacob, or do I need to ask the ATV?
Let's see. I think I got it.
There you go.
There we go.
Minus,
So it brings the budget right down to 43,665,588.
wrong sheet. Go back to that tax sheet.
Yeah.
And just put a minus 275. Yep. Okay. And a little bit more down for the home tax. There we go. Minus 0.04.
That's a significant difference.
Yeah,
Brings you, below, so it's a lower rather than a higher, it's a lower per pupil, the percentage, right?
mm-hmm.
So that's significant.
It is, and I think it's more representative of the balance between fully funding what we need to do and the ability of our taxpayers to afford it. I mean, granted, even the 1.8 was not a huge increase, and I fully understand that, but I just think perceptually, in my mind, this plays better. And if I'm wrong at the end of the year, we can certainly point that out. I'm willing to accept that. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong.
I'm less concerned about saying you're wrong or you're right, and more concerned about your statements that we could find the money and cover it. And I'd like a little explanation of exactly your thoughts on that and Tom's thoughts on that.
I'll go first. It's because even with the buy down of the taxes and the 800,000 we're putting into the capital projects reserve, we still have a fund balance of $2 million. That's I'm sorry?
No,
I thought
we're
you agreed.
agreeing. Everybody's agreeing.
Yeah, and that's where, if heaven forbid, we end up spending the 1.1, the difference would come out of it. It would still leave us with a substantial fund balance. And as I indicated, if we are going to the 1.1, it is not necessarily likely that that would happen in the first 3 or 4 months of the new fiscal year. Because I understand your point about people getting sick.
Right.
But it might be by the end of the year, which then the cash flow concerns are mitigated because we've collected all the tuitions.
That is a rational argument.
Good point.
And this is a different place than we've been in.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess part of the reason I did this, because yes, at some level, it isn't that substantial, but it perhaps to change a mindset going forward type thing. Because in the perfect world, and I understand, basically, we end up at a 0 every year. That's not practical because we're not fortune tellers.
wish we were.
Exactly. I'd be in Greenwich, Connecticut.
Yes.
Hedge fund. So I guess that's really where the gist of my no vote was at. I'm very comfortable with this. So there would be, if we did this next time, there would be no surprises on my part.
Right. Jim Vazina?
Yes.
I have depended on your good judgment for many, many years. Does this make you unduly nervous?
No, 200 for 200. If it unifies the board for a cut of 275,000, I think that's where you want to be.
All right.
I agree too. I think Russ makes a persuasive argument. I think honestly that, school administrators are conservative. We don't like to be that close to the bone. We get nervous because we don't have a place to dip into the pay.
That's right.
All right.
I think we're comfortable with this. We may not have the fund balance to apply next year, but so be
Right.
it.
All right. Well, if you roll up so I can see the new numbers, I will move that we amend our previous motion. If the chair will allow me to do that.
Unless thinking procedurally, if we the proper way to recall the original motion to approve the budget, so we could have a motion to do so.
Sure. Motion to reopen the discussion on the budget.
Yes.
What's the okay? Therefore, I would like to move that we reopen the discussion on the budget.
I'll second.
So we have a motion and a second to reopen the discussion on the budget, final budget number.
Right. And if you can adjust the view on the screen so I can see the new number.
But shouldn't we vote on the motion?
On the motion first.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, I apologize.
All in favor to reopen the budget vote? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? So moved. So we're at recalc.
All right. So based on the persuasive arguments of Mr. Russell, Mr. North, I apologize to both of you, Mr. North.
I've heard that one for a while.
Exactly.
I would like to move that we approve a FY 2023 budget of $43,390,588.
I'll second.
So we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? So moved. So 4-0-1.
Well, is there somebody, did somebody leave the meeting, Coach?
What is Hava here?
I'm here.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I wonder if he was abstaining.
And
I didn't know it was me.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. So it's 5-0.
5-0.
You know, like that.
And we're not
TV
even in
show.
Hawaii.
Yeah, really, like a TV show. You know. Welcome, Dan.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate the board's consideration of that. That was really helpful. There are some questions from the public. I don't know if you want them now or you want to wait till public comment.
Being that it's directly related to this topic, I think that it would be appropriate for us to do it now.
So there's a question around the school lunch program, Jacob, and the question was, are more people buying lunches at White River School? And there was one more component of that.
Participation at White River School has been higher. And I think that's in part based on how Scott has been able to serve. Because down there, I believe they are still, at least some of the classes are still eating in the lunchroom. Versus, some of the other schools where they're still bringing food to the classrooms, which affects the quality of the meals. Because when I talked with Scott, when we were talking about the budget, he said he's had roughly a jump in 10% participation from the kids.
Well, thank you. And then there was a question around the American Recovery Act and asking where does money from the American Recovery Act come in? And so the
So I'll
question,
just give a brief update on ESSER 3 as it's referred to by us. ESSER 3, the state plan was just approved. So that gives the state of Vermont their final third allotment of all the federal monies coming in. And what that does now is it triggers a 90-day approval process for all these school districts to get their general plan into the state of Vermont to approve on how they have to spend that money. Now, with that, there has to be a lot of feedback from the public and all these special groups and everyone else that has to have input on how that money is spent. Because our allotment is 2.3 million, but I think it's 25% has to go towards summer programming, which brings us down to roughly 1.8. So really, that's stuff that I think we're planning on new stuff, and we're not quite sure what we're doing with it yet, just because we haven't really started planning for it. I know we have some recovery team meetings coming up and stuff like that. So we're getting things together, but it's been a slow process as it's been coming from the feds to the state and then to us to get this thing moving.
and from the district end, there will be community engagement components to help us come to the conclusions on how we're spending the money.
And we have a perfect vehicle for that with our community engagement.
Jacob, I had heard early on that the state was attempting to claw back some of that money. Is that in fact still true? Or is that a misunderstanding on my part?
I haven't heard that for the ESSER funds. That was true for the CRF, which was the COVID relief funds,
Okay,
which
then I'm
was what we had
misunderstanding.
last year. And that was basically anything that you reclassified as repurposed, which we did for the 4 extra days because we had to get up to 170 student days. We claimed 4 days. So that money was clawed back out of the ed payment for last year. They tried to do it this year, but they got caught. And it was big mess. So they had to redo those payment amounts.
Yeah. It's not good to fool with Mother Nature. Okay.
There was a comment as to it's challenging to ask questions in this format.
Yeah, it is challenging to ask questions in this format. It's one of my concerns about hybrid meetings. It's very difficult to engage with the public and make this work well, but it's either in a fully electronic, it's a little easier than the hybrid model, but we do the best we can.
Well, the bill that passed the House today allows for full electronic, and it does not require a member of the staff to be present in the building. That's the bill that's going to the Senate as we speak, actually, because we had passed that out at about 3:30 this afternoon out of the House. And that's for the whole town meeting cycle. So that should hopefully the Senate will do their work and it should be done by Friday. So that piece will be clear, and I'll make sure to get copies to Tom and your team and Lisa as soon as we get that.
The last question to the group here is the ability to speak at select board meetings versus not being able to speak at this and having someone reading the questions. Is there a reason for that? Is this something we need to use the public comment time for?
You certainly could have people speak. We were just doing that because, you know, we're not at the public comment section yet. So just trying to be efficient, but in the public comment section, you certainly open it up and make folks a panelist and they ask their question and have more of a dialogue with the board.
And the thing is, this is important as, you know, the financial aspects of our responsibility are. It is incumbent upon us when we have the opportunity, you know, to work with, you know, our fellow Hartford residents on these issues, to do it as well as we can. And that's how we roll.
I would amplify that, and if we do go fully electronic, I do think we seriously should consider following the select board's example and having the ability to ask questions throughout the meeting.
It's whatever your pleasure is as the board.
Right. So you know, and the thing is, it's just because we don't necessarily get quite as many, you know, either. So it isn't, you know, a question of volume or anything of that sort. You know, it's trying to address, you know, the topics and the issues as with as much clarity and transparency as possible. So, okay. Budget balance maintenance and improvement committee.
Improvement committee is what's up. That's fairly quick.
Yeah.
We did have one. I did advertise. We did have one respondent, and it's Doug Heavysides, the father. Would love to continue his participation on the with the new facilities planning committee. And what I wanted to know is if there was a board member or how the board will select their representative, and then I can continue to advertise in hopes of getting 2 more members of the public, but I'm not sure we need to wait, if the board wants to wait to fill that, or if we can start our work and hopefully add some members as we go. I don't know what the pleasure of the board is.
A quick question, a clarifying question. Are you saying, Tom, that we would then have 2 members, and are you asking us to consider moving forward with 2 community members, or are there more other than Adam and Mr. Hensel?
We had said there would be seven voting members on the planning committee. 3 of which will be members of the public that have professional design acquisition experience. 1 of the members would be a school teacher or staff member. 1 will be the director of facilities, and 1 will be the superintendent or his or her designee. So we're looking for 3 people from the public. I'm just afraid that based on like the town school meeting committee, it's taken us a long time to recruit 1. I don't know how many people are going to be volunteering in this really hectic time, and you know, in our world and in society. I want to pursue 3, but I also don't know if you want to just hold up the work until we have 3. Guess that's my question.
May I make a suggestion? Perhaps for the members of the public, we relax the requirement for professional design experience. Because I think any member of the public who's willing to participate and offer us opinions on what we think the district might need in terms of future. And that way we're being more inclusive, since that's a theme in this meeting. And those people right now are probably very busy because there's more work than people can handle. So that would be one of my suggestions.
I would agree with Russ, on that topic. The other suggestion would be there is a merge class that is finishing up pretty quick, I think, and that has been very effective at bringing more women into all levels of community engagement. So that class is finishing up. Possibly, Tom, sending a copy of the ask to them, looking for Hartford Emerge members who might be interested, because that's their whole goal, is to get more involved.
Okay. Sounds good.
With
Now-
respect to Mr. Nord's amendment, would we be willing to discuss, instead of taking out entirely the requirement that was discussed about facilities experience and so forth, could we say instead that a preference for that?
Preference. That's a good.
Yeah.
That's a good caveat.
That would allow us to do others, but if we could find people with design and acquisition experience, they would get priority.
Right. And we are looking for Hartford residents, and the other group, Tom, is the Bright Institute. Lavidia Bright was the first woman of color in the legislature, and this institute is named after her. And again, it is designed in training folks to be more politically and socially active. And they have a website, so you could access that. And they serve the whole state. It's new, but it's fresh faces. So they might have garnered some additional folks that might be interested in this type of community.
Should I revise the document and bring it back at the future meeting for approval, or is it not that formal?
No, well, I think we can amend this, with a motion.
Yeah.
You did vote on it, I think.
Right. Right. And we have a couple extra resources, in addition, that I don't know why I didn't think of those before, but anyways.
Yeah, no, I think that'll make a difference. Yeah, and I just don't know if you want to take the initiative tonight to designate or select a board member that's going to be on this committee, or if you want to wait until we have more members. That's up to you.
I don't think we should wait. I think we should get going.
Be nice.
That said, yeah, I had a very enjoyable experience on the committee. This is Bottled After, which was the Wilder School. And if nobody else is willing to step up, I would be willing to serve on this board, but I would hope that somebody else might find it interesting and volunteer.
I was considering volunteering, but did we decide on only one board member? Or if there's two of us, to have two board members?
We had always done one in the past, and we were just using the prior model.
Okay, fair enough. I just was asking a question.
Yeah, and in the prior model, the board member was the chair of the committee, just because somebody had to be.
Oh,
But so are you stepping forward?
Unless somebody else wants to. I don't want to exclude anybody, but if no one else is, I would be interested.
It also wouldn't be horrible to either have two board members or a board member and an alternate, because if you remember, it's hard to schedule the meetings and sometimes people miss and conflicts and whatnot, so.
The only concern I would have is the number remain odd, total number of members, because you don't want to have the built-in possibility of tie break, the ties.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So if you wanted to increase it to 9 or something.
Or you could decrease, you could either decrease one of the staff, or you could decrease the members of the public.
Right.
Well, I think it's critical to have the community involvement.
Yeah.
So I personally wouldn't want to see us decrease there.
Right.
And
but wait a minute, we're only at 6 under what is written there. A board member, 3 members of the public, a teacher, and the director of facilities. That's 6.
And the superintendent.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I just thought he was an advisor. Okay, that's cool.
Nope.
It wouldn't be difficult to go to 9. It's the pleasure of the board. This was just a model that I adapted while this actually was adapted by from the town hall. If you remember the town hall meeting, town hall building committee.
Right. I would advise sticking with 7. It's large enough to get a diversity of opinions and bring in members of the public and so forth, but is small enough that there's a sense of collegiality and people don't stick to much formality and so forth, and it just works more smoothly. If larger committees are hard to make work, in my experience.
And it may be moot because unless Nancy or Hava expresses an interest, there is only one board member who stepped up.
Right.
And I don't mean to put anybody on the spot. It's just
as I said, I had a very good time working on the Wilder School, and I'm delighted with the outcome. But I thought I should give somebody else a chance. And if you step up, I would be quite happy with that.
So I mean, like I said, I'm willing unless somebody else feels strongly they want to do it.
So guys, are folks, are we talking about 2 board members or 1?
1, I would think.
Okay. That's I just wanted that piece of clarity,
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I was suggesting as well.
And heaven knows, Hava and I are not very bashful. So, if we didn't like what you were doing, Russell, we could always come right in and say, hey, wait a minute.
See, that goes without saying. That goes without saying, so I guess we don't have to worry about that part.
All right.
All right.
I would like.
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to move that we accept the changes to the committee draft charter, pass it, and accept Russell North as the representative of the board to the committee.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second to move our facilities improvement committee forward, with Russ being our rep, with aforementioned changes. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? So moved.
Thank you. I just heard from Jack. I'm not sure, Jake, I'm not sure if he's still online.
Yes.
He is.
Um,
Go
And I
ahead,
just
Jake.
want to say, I made a mistake. And in regard to the bottom line budget, the 275 was removed twice. Removed it once on the expense side, on the budget side, and once on the revenue page. And I don't know how you want to fix this, but we took it out twice, that 275. And
So in other words, you took out, it basically amounts to 550, 500.
yes, so
So this is what it brings the tax rates to at now, corrected.
0.7.
% increase.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
Jake, that line,
You know, when there's a math, issue, we can, re-vote for the correction.
I'm sorry about that. I didn't mean to be out of order, but I wanted to.
No,
make
no,
sure.
well,
Sorry to
you
be on
know,
the fly.
no, well,
Wanted to
it's,
catch the correct number.
yeah, well, it's hard, when we're this close at the end and then make a shift.
Yep.
So,
sorry.
we have a corrected number.
Which is on line 1.
Can you read that number, Jim?
43,665,588. And I apologize.
That's the number I had, Jim.
Yeah, so it's just in the spreadsheet.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we don't need a new motion.
Okay, then our bottom line was correct.
Yeah,
So
right.
but it was
Well,
a,
except with the tax consequences.
Yeah.
If
right,
Mr. North wanted to reconsider his vote because of this change in the tax consequences.
right,
I'm
but
shaking my head no, Peter, so.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
no, we're good. We're good.
Okay.
It
I'm gratified.
was a spreadsheet issue, and we found the error, and the error has since been corrected, but it did not affect the bottom line.
Yeah, it doesn't affect the warning, correct?
That's the point, the bottom line, the warning.
Hey, my apologies.
No.
Sorry about that.
Stuff happens.
Hey, well,
It
geez,
Every day.
in 10 budgets, that's not bad, Jim.
does. Hey,
Okay. All right.
I gotta check this again because maybe I need to verify it with Sherry, the amount you actually voted. Was it indeed 43,665,588? That is the correct number, right, Jim? And Jake? The dollar amount for the budget?
Jim, you're muted.
43,665,588. Jake, is that correct?
Correct. 43,665,588.
Okay,
So we're there.
I want to make sure what was voted on in that motion that passed.
please.
Because on my sheet, I thought we had 43,390,588.
That's what I thought it was.
That's what I
thought it was.
Mm.
So, let us move to officially
You need to
correct, or do we need to have a correction then?
I believe so.
Yes,
All right.
yes.
All right. I move that we correct the amount in the budget that is approved for next year, fiscal year 2023, to, go ahead, Judd. Jim, read up the number.
43,665,588.
Okay. That number.
Awesome.
Tom,
There a
you're okay
second?
with that?
Yeah.
Is there a second to approve
But
the
we have it,
correction?
we need a second.
Second,
Okay, Ned,
So we have a motion and a second to correct the bottom line number for the warrant as stated. All in favor?
aye.
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 Opposed? So moved.
You'll have a second round at this anyhow at the next meeting. When you
Right.
approve warnings, you'll have the exact number again, so.
Right, in the warrant itself.
Right, correct. And that actually stipulates the reduction in the per pupil amount too.
Right.
And we'll be able to sign that electronically, right, Tom?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we did that last time, and we do some electronic signings, as necessary. Okay, we have the technology.
Yeah, but it's one of those things you'd rather be safe than sorry.
Well, no, it isn't even, that's the nature of our work,
Yep.
Okay. So have we covered everything in section 4?
The town meeting planning cycle still hasn't been covered. The calendar update hasn't, or the monitoring reports.
Yeah.
And superintendent report.
Right.
So those issues remain.
Okay, so Tom, the calendar?
Okay, do you mind if I do town meeting cycle?
Okay, yeah, we may as well do that first.
So a couple things here. First, the budget and candidates night is the 21st at 7 o'clock. February 21st, I'm sorry. 7 o'clock in the auditorium, so.
For now, I mean.
Well, it
may be
yeah.
electronic and not in.
I mean, I would strongly, if it deems safe enough to do it in person for the reasons we've talked about, but.
But one of the things in this discussion is going to be the polling the board on what your preference is for in-person or remote electronic. The select board is doing that. We sort of need to do the same thing. I don't know what will happen if they decided one way and we decided a different way, but we were just sort of informally polling board members as to what your preference is.
Let me be formal about it. My preference is not to meet in person until Omicron and whatever successor comes to it are out of the way and we're home free.
That would be.
I have to agree with that.
Right, my preference as well.
I'll go with the consensus.
Peter, that didn't come through clear to me. Can you say that again?
My preference is to meet remotely.
Okay. I think you'll get the participation from the public in that forum, but given where COVID is now.
Right.
Right.
And the thing is, I mean, you figure the last time that we actively, went fully remote. We had a,
We had a good turnout.
yeah. So anyways,
So the dates would still remain the same as far as
right.
those dates
Right.
are in the morning. So
Right.
221 is budget candidate night. 226 of February 26th is Saturday, 10 o'clock is town meeting.
Hmm.
And then it's adjourned until Tuesday.
Election.
Yeah, March 1st.
March 1st.
Australian ballot voting is
Yep.
Tuesday.
Related to that, I've been asked this and I don't know the answer. Who's up for reelection on the school board?
Peter
I am.
and I.
Okay, that was my guess. I'm just curious. Thank you.
Peter's
Nancy,
a
you up on?
term, Nancy is
I
a
am.
Oh, there's 3 of us?
No, 2.
Just 2.
Peter and Nancy.
Oh, I thought I was,
Yeah, I did
but I
that
got
last
1
time.
year left. I got 1 year left.
I did that last time.
I did too. Yeah, I think it's just Peter and I this time. Peter's a 3-year and I'm a 2-year.
Okay. Huh. Okay.
Um,
Oh, well.
But you might want to check that with Lisa, just to be sure, Kevin.
Well, I'll go back to my town report because it's in the back of the town
Right,
report.
right.
And you know what, when we do that, it wouldn't be a bad thing, at least for me, that we list out when everyone's term expires, so.
Right.
Because I thought I might be, but then somebody reminded me I ran. It just seemed like so long ago.
Actually.
11 years and I honestly can't keep track of this. It is, I don't know why it's confusing, but there's something about it.
Tom.
It's never the same people because of the 3 and the 2 terms.
Tom, maybe what we could do just to really keep it simple is put the term underneath each of us on the webpage.
Yeah, because then that would let the public know.
Right.
Because I know a lot of other organizations do that, and then that way it's easy. If you got a 2-year term, 1 year, whatever it is, you go, oh, okay.
And Nancy, in case you didn't catch it because you came to the meeting late, Coach had said that the legislature is planning to change the requirement for collecting signatures.
Right. I got that from VSBA tonight too. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Thank you very much for mentioning it to me, Doug.
Neither of us wanted to get out there.
And Nancy, as soon as it passes, I'll make sure to get it to Tom and Lisa, and oh geez, I just lost our town manager.
Tracy.
Yeah.
Because I sent her the last update. Okay.
And they were saying tonight that should be done by next week.
Yep.
So that was that section. The next thing I think is the town, the calendar for next year. I think it's finally done. We made quite a few changes this year. Roy's gonna share his screen and show it. Quite a few changes, which you've seen a few times, but the change from last time to this meeting is the addition of blue numbering for holidays, days. We're actually calling them recognized days. So those are all on the second page. You could see the recognized days. You could scroll down to a new second page. It'll be the back side of the calendar that indicates why they're recognized. So our wonderful equity anti-racist team, right, did this work, and they identified which holidays. They did a survey of the community, which holidays and which days are celebrated in our community, and they came up with this list. So we're really pleased and proud to put them on the calendar as days that teachers and staff should be aware a student may be absent because they celebrate this holiday, or that staff and teachers should recognize the day in their curriculum or in the school. So it's a start. It's probably not perfect, but we're excited to be able to acknowledge those dates. The rest of the calendar you've seen several times. The dates haven't changed. Vacations. The start is a week later than we usually have done. That's what all the towns that we deal with and send tuition students here really wanted. That's what our teachers wanted. And then April break, I believe, was moved up a week. So that's a little different. Other than that, there's nothing significant. So it'd be great if you could approve this and we can be done with the calendar. If you have any thoughts about the way I did the recognized days, I'd appreciate hearing. Wasn't easy because I don't want people confused that they're actually days off for everyone.
Right.
Be a student that's off because of a recognized holiday, but not the entire population.
Exactly.
So it's a start.
Mhm.
I hope.
So I have a question.
Sure.
If the student is off, not in school on the days that are in blue, are these still counted as days for attendance for them?
No, if they
How's that
indicate,
done?
yeah, if they indicated that to the administration, it would be excused.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Mhm.
That practice has already been in use, but teachers didn't necessarily know why a student was absent.
Right.
So
Right,
This formalizes the process.
yeah,
a little more
that's great.
between a student being absent and, oh, well, I know they are this faith, or I know they.
Right. Good, thank you.
I express my thanks for this.
Yes.
Yeah, it's been a long time in coming, and we finally
Yeah.
did the book. Try to be clear. I'm sure there will be some growing pains, that
Mhm.
some confusion, but I tried to be as clear as possible.
So we need a motion to accept the 22-23 final calendar.
Make a motion.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Nancy,
Mr.
you have it.
Russell. Oh, okay. I make a motion that we accept the 22-23 calendar as a final calendar.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to accept our final draft of the calendar. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? So moved. We have a calendar.
Yay. So
Okay.
one of the things the board are in reviewing the agenda, Kevin asked me to put the superintendent report in the discussion section so we could have a little bit more of a discussion about where we're at with COVID in the schools, because that's been primarily the topic in my superintendent reports. So I'm happy to talk about it a little or answer questions or concerns from the board around the COVID response. It's been, Christmas break was a little relief. Things were really heating up before the holiday break in December, and then we came back, and I think people felt fairly good, fairly positive for a couple of days, and then the cases started really spiking. So the last 2 weeks, we've had a lot of cases. Not enough to close any of the big schools. We did have a closure last Thursday at the regional alternative program. So half of the Wilder school was closed for a day because they didn't have enough staff to operate safely because of COVID exposures and COVID illness. That's the only closure we've had. related to COVID. And I think, like today, we had 6 cases at the high school, so 6 individuals that tested positive. We had 3 at Dothan School, 1 at the White River School, I believe. So we've had a regular daily occurrence of cases, but late last week, the state sort of sprung on us that they were really going to change up the way that we manage COVID and do away with contact tracing, and that it was imminent that it would be announced earlier this week, these changes, which I think the board received a few letters about some changes at the high school, sort of based on that imminent announcement around the change in contact tracing. At the elementary schools and the middle school, just so the board and the public know, the contact tracing has been somewhat manageable. At the high school, it's really, really difficult because the students move from class to class. They have multiple teachers, they have multiple classmates, different classmates in each section. It gets really unwieldy. So there's that, just in the perfect world with contact tracing. Now with Omicron, what's happened is that the cases are so prevalent and the exposures are it's so easy to catch it that the contact tracing really has, the effectiveness has really been negated by the way that it spreads so easily. And all of the science that I've read and the information I've read is that it's really no longer worthwhile doing that. We need to be doing more testing and just assuming that there's been exposures and trying to identify who is positive and quarantining and limiting their contact with those that may not have been exposed or don't have it. That's tipped a lot of people over. I mean, it's really caused a lot of concern because we're all in this mode of, I'm going to prevent everyone from getting it. Let's stay safe by masking, double masking, staying away from each other. The last week, couple days, even, all the articles I've read have been around. We're not going to prevent it. We're not going to prevent those exposures. We're not going to prevent the spread of this. And I think we're all having a hard time with that. So what the state is proposing, what we're trying to do in the district is really move away from contact tracing and get into more regular testing of individuals and staff so that we know who is positive and they can quarantine and manage if they have any symptoms and get back as quick as possible. That's kind of where we're at. It's upsetting a lot of people, and I don't know what members of the board maybe have a lot more knowledge about it than myself, but that's what we're contending with. And there's a whole new set of guidance from the AOE. It hasn't been official. Well, it's been rolled out, but they said since they don't have all the supplies that they need to provide us, antigen tests, then we can implement it once we have those supplies. So basically, we're in this limbo between what we were doing and what we're supposed to be doing. And I think the nurses and I, we have a pretty good plan of using the existing PCR tests and the existing supplies that we do have to manage it in the meantime. But it's been very difficult and trying because people are upset with the changes and don't understand the science and don't understand why it's happened so quickly. But so what questions do people have or comments, or where am I maybe misreading the guidance or misreading
Tom,
the concern?
with respect to the tracing effort, I think that a better way to explain it perhaps is given the limited resources we've had to actually trace people, we can trace a limited number of people in a given week. So in the past, when we were having 2 or 3 people needed to be traced, we could do that. When it has gone to 5 in one day, we can't actually trace people quickly enough for us to get the data out to the people who might be affected. And it is better to say that we can't do that and not have people rely upon a methodology that we can't actually support than to pretend somehow that we still could manage to trace people when we just don't have. It takes so much time and so much effort, as you pointed out, and we have so few people who can do it. It's better to admit that that mechanism can't protect you because we can't do it. Is the way I have been thinking about it. It doesn't make me happy. My initial response to the announcements from the state was a combination of anger and disappointment. But I think in this case, it actually is better to be realistic about what we can actually achieve than to allow people to think that somehow we're engaging in a particular effort that would be effective when it wouldn't.
So what would you suggest instead of, Peter? I'm just asking.
Yeah, no. So I think what Tom is trying to promote is a good step. The state has said that instead of doing specific tracing for the individuals that you have been exposed to, they are rather planning to make an announcement about you were in a class with somebody. So they don't have to go to as granular a level. The argument they have made is that this is actually more rigorous because it includes a larger population being notified of possible exposures. I'm not sure I necessarily buy that argument, quite frankly. It does give you some indication that you need to watch out, be careful. But if, as could well happen in the next 2 or 3 weeks, if Omicron continues to peak as it does, I'm not a public health expert, but just looking at the mathematics of it, if you are bombarded with notices that you were in a location where somebody else had Omicron, eventually it's not going to mean much. As if everything is an emergency, nothing is any longer an emergency just because you can't differentiate. And I wish there were better answers. And the only answers I have are physical distancing to the extent you can. If you have not yet vaccinated yourself, please do so, not just to improve your odds of surviving a disease, but also to reduce the risk to the public. Wash your hands and wear a mask. That's about the only tools we really have that I'm aware of.
I know that frequently when there are updates to the COVID policies, emails go out to parents and guardians and things like that. But would it be possible to include high school students on that mailing list as well?
Yeah, I thought that you were getting those notices. 'Cause
We've been getting some notices through the nurse and through Mr. Fogg, but we haven't been getting a lot of district-wide notices. And so a lot of times students have been finding out changes in policy because their parents have shown them the email or a friend sent them a screenshot of it. And so on like the high school level, there's sometimes a bit more of a patchwork of who knows what.
Okay. I thought in Infinite Campus, when I sent it to everyone, I thought all the students at the high school level were getting it, but I'll check with Bill Yates, the district data manager, and see if that's true or what. Obviously it's not. You should have been getting lots of notices from me about COVID cases in the school. No,
Thank you for checking on that.
yeah.
And
no,
I would be very interested in having that notice sent to me, Tom, just for my edification. I just, I do get stuff from parents, obviously still, even though I'm telling them, don't send this to me, send it to Tom. So I'm trying to shift them your way as much as I can. But I get more now is the fact that, we had a case notified to us in the middle school today and that kind of stuff. I just think that, I think each of us as a board member should have that information too. I think we should be made very aware of what's going on in our schools with the numbers. That's how I feel. Maybe the rest of you don't feel that way.
I just know that the notifications can be slightly misleading. Some of the cases have, very few impact, very little impact. Some have a great impact. So they vary quite a bit in the impact on the school. We might have 6 cases and 2 of them are really very significant.
Right. I
Or
understand that.
maybe kids who haven't been in school when they can.
Tom, with
Yeah.
respect to the possible increase in the number of Omicron, which looked at the trends is to be expected, we could easily get to the position, though we haven't yet, where we really can't safely run the schools.
Right.
Is there any kind of notice that we can give to the public about how we will handle that, what we will be doing, some kind of, we're getting close to it, we're not there yet, but so people can start to plan, gee, I may have to be responsible for my children on Thursday or something like that. I know it is an incredibly difficult thing to forecast how this is going to work, but anything we can do to make sure that we are keeping people aware of what the status of the school is and how close we may or may not be to having to do something, and what we would likely do if we did have to would be very useful, I think.
And I do know that there's some other districts in the state that the boards are made aware of this information so that they can keep on top of their own toes to know what's going on.
All right. I care less about the board specifically being informed, because I'm sure if you're telling the public, we will learn too. But I really do want the public to have a chance to think about, what happens if I have to take care of the kids on Thursday? What does that do? Or just, go ahead.
I'm just going to ask if a simple reporting sheet. I'm hearing Tom say he doesn't want to send out many notices, which as a parent in the school district, I appreciate because they can be overwhelming. But I'm wondering if we just did a summary, we could just.
Yeah, that would be fine.
If that fits, right? If that fits what everybody's saying here is a school breakdown summary. 6 cases at the high school, 12 cases at the middle school.
Well,
that would be fine for
guys,
me.
Folks.
Yes.
I'm gonna differ a little bit because we just added an extra piece of work for Tom, and not to say, he doesn't have big shoulders and can't handle that. But I think that if it's possible, and I know he has the capability, to add those of us that aren't getting those announcements because of Infinite Campus to Infinite Campus as board members, then we get what we get and we deal with what we see. Okay, we're adults, we're the board. We're not going to freak out every time we see, a note.
Right.
But if we see a note and somebody, contacts us, we go, yeah, I did see that, and then you can adjust the way you're working, with the public. So I think the easier and fairer way is just making sure that we're in that queue of information. I know for a while, when Tom was first managing that Alert Now system himself, he had added us, and that was pretty cool, because anytime anything happens,
Right.
you know, school was called off or something like that, we got the Alert Now. So if we just get added, you know, I think that that's the least cumbersome way, without adding another piece to Tom's plate at this point, because otherwise he's going to have to go, okay, what do we have? 3 in one in the high school? I mean, you know,
Well, in infinite campuses, you know, if I send it to everyone, you should all get notified. So last weekend, you should have gotten a notice from me about the changing guidance, whether you have
Right, you
students,
did. Mm-hmm.
whether you have students in the school or not, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then for the individual schools, if you're not part of that school community, then I would have to add you to make sure you get that one. So if there was a notice at, you know, Ottaquechee School, you would automatically get that too, which isn't a problem.
right.
But my understanding of the way the guidance is changing, there's going to be a lot less of those individual notices than there was in the past, because of the new way that they want us to, you know, they want to get away from contact tracing. According to the experts that we've listened to, it's gonna, you know, everyone's gonna end up exposed to it. So it's gonna be a community spread, and assume you've been exposed and get tested regularly. That's how contagious Omicron is.
Yeah.
So I don't know if we're gonna continue doing all the individual notices that there's been an exposure at so-and-so's class or in the Dothan-Brook school.
Well, Tom, I still think that, you know, if the board, you know, is added, you know, in the system, you know, whatever comes will come.
Yeah.
You know, when it does. And at least that way, you know, it's our option. You know, I mean, you know, you can decide to read the note or not read the note, or, you know, deal with it, you know.
Thought doing a summary for everyone. So it may come where you do get some sort of summary, because the way it happens now, the cases will roll in during the day, and it's easier to say, okay, at 4 or 5 o'clock, I'll send total, rather than 4 messages throughout the day that said there's been.
No, well,
I've received the message since we've been talking about this, just so you know.
That's creating a lot of anxiety when you get 4 or 5 messages in the day that are all the same that say there's been a COVID. So.
Well, I think what I heard was things are changing. What I know is things are changing. You know, so I think almost like what we did before, Tom, at the beginning of the school year, we actually, you know, would normally just check the boxes. Remember that little form you did? You know, what did you want to hear? Did you want to hear from all the schools, or just, you know, from you in the high school, or you in the middle school, or whatever, you know, because for some, you know, hearing from the elementary schools is more interesting, or, you know, for certain people's interest. And because they're part of that cohort, you know, they get some cool information from the school, you know, and it's not just about COVID, you know, is I think would be my feeling about it. You hear about a special project they're working on or something like that, and you go, wow, that's cool, you know. And then that way, when Roy and Kathy do their piece for us, you know, you can kind of, you know, feel a little more engaged in the conversation.
All right.
But that's just my perspective.
May I make 2 observations or suggestions? One,
yes,
I think, and it doesn't have to be, but I think we should put out some kind of blanket notice to the public about this change. So like a grandparent or somebody can make an informed decision. I mean, the wordage I'd leave up to you, but basically saying your grandchild or whomever may have been exposed and they may not know about it. So they can be more proactive in asking type thing. And I mean, like an ad in the paper or on the listserv, maybe once or twice, just to remind people. Because I mean, I think the people who potentially most at risk may not be in any of these distribution channels you're mentioning right here type thing. And I think the other thing that it is a difficult time and no one is necessarily happy with the AOE's guidance. And when you use the term guidance, is that more of a, yes, you have to do it? Or, okay, so guidance is a misnomer. And I think that's something we need to communicate. It's a directive. They can call it whatever the heck they want, but it's a directive.
Point well taken.
And two, I know there's a need to get information out, but frankly, on Friday, the information to the high school was mishandled. I mean, the fact that the teachers weren't in the loop caused a lot of the problem, because I don't believe this for a second, but it reinforces the perception that they don't matter. And there is that out there in the teaching community.
Yes, that is.
And we need to be cognizant of that in how we communicate. And it's a balancing act, because you want to get the information out there. I got that. But sometimes I almost think it would have been better if we'd waited till Monday, because you also had the weekend when everyone was wondering. And I know there was a couple frantic people in my household.
Right.
So
an apology was issued. That wasn't a mistake, but.
I mean, I'm not going to beat anybody up for it because mistakes happen, but I think going forward, we need to have the mindset that right now, as part of the stress the teachers are feeling, is a perception that they're sharing a burden that the rest of us aren't, type thing. And we need to at least be cognizant. We may not be able to do anything about it, but at least to acknowledge it, I think would go a long way.
Yeah.
Also, too, with the idea that was mentioned before about like sending out a notice warning parents when we might get to the point where we need to close the school because of COVID, that might potentially put some pressure on teachers or feel like they're being singled out, because like in the high school level, there's been a lot of concern, specifically with the students about, you know, oh, is it because this teacher's out that we're at the breaking point, and stuff like that. And so as a student, my concern is just like the idea of who might potentially get blamed for this in unexpected ways, because high schoolers and just like kids in general sometimes look for easy answers or easy people to blame.
And we've worked really hard not to close. I mean, generally the guidance is somewhere around 30% of your staff are absent or incapable of coming in. You're at the breaking point where the school's closed because they don't feel safe. We haven't gotten to that. But that's sort of the general rule of thumb. But I think you're right. Everything in COVID so far has had like the yin and yang effect. This is good for this group, but this group is going to be upset. And so the administration and the nursing staff, you know, have really been caught in the middle and feel pretty bruised by both sides of this. You've got, you know, teachers not feeling protected and parents upset that there's so much exposure, and is the school doing everything they can? Are we keeping, you know, it's been very, very difficult for everyone all the way around, and everyone's stressed and anxious about it. But the concern I have again is with that contact tracing. A lot of people are feeling like, I got a notice, okay, so I can do these things. I didn't get a notice, I'm safe. Well, from what I understand with the way the current variant is so prevalent, it's sort of a miscalculation that you're safe because it's so rampant. And there's so much exposure everywhere, not just in the school, that we really need to reverse that thinking. So I think you're going to see more of that, a lot more testing, a lot less discussion of contact tracing. And we're trying to do the best we can. We know we can do a lot better. I have no problem sending everyone notices.
Okay.
While they last.
Well, I think, this, the whole thing kind of got exacerbated by a decision that was made outside of your purview. And the immediate reaction to it was to send forward that comment that you got, at the all superintendents meeting, So they even had to do the back walk because they didn't even have the testing supplies to supply all of the, the schools with the testing supplies. So, we're going to do this mandate, but then we come to find out we really can't pull it off. So now we got to back off. And, that's, it's frustrating at best, but I think, Russ, your point's well taken about the only thing that we do control is what we do, and so if we're fully intentional about certain parts of how we communicate, then we're fine, And I think, your points about, because that's one of the biggest things is, we are a very gray state, and so that means a lot of grandparents.
Yeah.
Well, no, I wasn't picking on you, man.
Sure.
But that, that's critical, and
Yes.
Russ's point about, how do we engage, our fellow Hartford, residents when, they might be caregivers too.
Yeah.
So, but anyways, I think it was that's why we moved this to the end of the meeting so that we could have a full discussion. Any other thoughts? And Tom, we'll leave that piece, up to you, as far as the to your discretion. Whatever seems to work best and is easiest for you, to help communicate that for us.
Will do. Easy to add the notices.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. All righty. We have just a few things to clean up. I've got a couple of monitoring reports I owe you guys, and I know Tom's was there. Actually, mine are just formatting issues at this point. I added all of our community engagement stuff, and then I went to drop it in the text box in Excel, and I think it's because I'm using two different platforms, because my iPad works one way and then my laptop works another way. But anyways, no excuses. I got it done. I'll get it to you. So that brings us to the consent agenda.
Public comments?
Yep. Yeah, we can do that order, and then we'll do the other. Yeah. Okay. Are there any other comments from the public?
Michelle Boleski's waiting on public comment, so I think if we added her to a panel, that would allow her to speak, yes?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right, I'm back. I waited 2 hours to speak. So, so anyway, I just want to say first off, I've been to a couple meetings at one public engagement, and it was just really frustrating trying to figure out how to speak. So I know that you're having another public meeting in a couple weeks, and I think it's really important to figure out how to let people ask questions from the public. So I just wanted to give that feedback. All right. And I like to do that. So, bear with me. And I'm speaking my mind more now that I'm not on the board. But the other question I had, and it was during the budget, I was just really, really curious because I know that White River started a unique and new food program. And so I was just curious if anyone had data or feedback as to whether it was just because of the way the principal was serving, or was it because of the type of food and the menu that he was serving? Because I know he's not using the food service. Am I correct in that? Right? Yes? Anyone
Yes.
know that?
That's
Yes.
correct.
Okay. So does that, and so it seems to me that that model was successful compared to the other elementary schools. And I just want to know why, and is that something you want to consider, for another year to do, since there was a challenge in the food service this year with the other schools.
As I remember, didn't Chef come to us and present it to us as a board? And it was a pilot program for White River for the first year. Wasn't that what happened?
Yes,
Yeah.
it's a pilot program. And so it's similar to, so when I first started teaching here, that was something I suggested. And, way back when, I don't even remember what year it was, but I was told that's not the way we do things in Hartford. And there was a woman that had run the food service program like forever, probably when Roy was in school. And I don't know if you went to elementary school here, but everyone had told me she's been here forever and you can't even ask her. And so in the schools that I came from in the Mad River Valley, they used fresh produce. They used like Red Hen Bakery. They used, and they also used some of the products that came from the government. But they had, in those schools, everyone was buying lunch. I mean, parents were coming to the school to buy lunch. And so, I'm just curious, and I know this is a small thing in the big budget, and I did sit through it, and I remember, and I appreciate all the work and questions everybody has asked, but that has always been very important to me. So.
No, that program's going really well. We hope to expand it once we know how successful it is as far as, financially too. So we're about halfway through the year. Everything indicates that it's really well received and it's very successful. So we hope to expand it.
Okay. Do you think more kids are buying lunch because of the type of food served? Has anyone done any surveys?
Food, it's the freshness, it's all cooked right there. It's, the best ingredients. Yeah, I mean, it's hot. It's definitely a good thing. It's what we needed to do. So
a lot of it is to do with Chef's attitude.
Yeah, Chef's
I mean, he is phenomenal with those kids.
Really?
Oh yeah, and I think that's very encouraging to them. And they're more willing to try the different things. And some of them will, here's what I've been told him about chefs, that he says, yes, says, I've got one little kid says, yeah, he loves the pizza. He just loves it when we have pizza. He said, so he'll eat it all down to a couple of bites, and then he'll drop those couple of bites on the floor, and then he'll come up to him and say, Chef, I dropped my pizza, so I'll need another piece. So, and he accommodates him. So I really think that on top of it being good, nutritious, healthy food, that the attitude makes a big difference for the younger kids in the elementary school. Anyway.
And that's one of the things that I when I was at those other schools, the chefs in the schools were an integral part of the school community. Absolutely. And when we had special days, we had special menus, and we would do Red Clover Day, and the chefs would hey Tom, the chefs would, I see two of Tom now. The chefs would be included in the curriculum. So anyway, I just thank you for answering that question, Tom. And I was looking at the agenda and going back and forth. I had gotten the agenda in the listserv, but I don't know if there's a way with this format to post the agenda or post the rules about asking questions. Is there a space on this format to do that? Because that might be helpful as well. Anyway, I know in other Zoom meetings, like regular Zoom meetings, right? Everybody, there's a chat format on the side. You can post links and information. So I didn't know if that was, if that was available to you guys as a board when you are doing it through YouTube and CATV.
I can check with the CATV technician is saying no. We do use a different format than the.
Okay.
We were asked to turn off the chats.
Yeah.
So there is no chats.
Okay.
Or maybe, like how you have like Roy and then the different boxes, and then you see the Hartford school board, the room. Maybe there can be another computer, another screen with a screenshot of the agenda and the rules permanently in a box. I don't know. It's just a thought.
Yeah.
And I know that you don't have, I know I'm probably the only one here right now in the audience. I don't know. But
You outlasted everybody else.
I did. Yeah. I'm tenacious. I'll tell you that. But all right. So that's it for me. You can shut my mic now. Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle.
All right. Good to see
you.
you all.
Thank you.
Bye.
I think those points are actually well taken. And I think that, this, as we engage in this process, we just need to keep growing it. It's almost like the chef doing the work at White River School. We have to play with the menu and get people more engaged and move that forward. So I guess unless there's any public comment from board members, I guess the next item.
I do have one, excuse me, Coach.
Sure, go ahead.
I do feel obliged to just make one comment, and this is really more for our secretary than anybody else. And I just feel obliged to explain, I've been here the whole time, and that any votes that were counted before where there was a 1 abstention or absence, that was actually me. I was here. And I voted yay. I haven't voted against anything tonight.
See, you know what I don't like about this, the way that the screen's set up. When you're doing a screen share, you don't get
It
everybody.
bumps everybody, right?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's a little tricky, because you don't, the hands don't show and all of that other stuff. So, it's like,
Yeah.
but like I said, we'll have to figure out ways to make it work better.
Sure. I just wanted to make sure the record showed that I was
Yes.
actually here the whole time.
Yes.
Okay.
Please.
So maybe, Coach, for important votes, we do a roll call vote.
Yeah.
Well, we could do that as well.
Yeah, and that would eliminate any.
Question.
Yeah.
It's hard to hear the voice vote anyway. We don't really know. Not that it matters.
That's true.
Who's saying what.
So we can do that. For especially, like the budget votes, committees and things of that sort. So thanks, Hava.
Sure.
So that brings us to the consent agenda.
Okay, I do have one nomination, and it's Jeremy Willett, and he is going to be the HACTC Information Technology Instructor. So we've been trying to fill that for a while. We finally found someone who currently works at VTC. We're really excited to have him come in this year to sort of plan, not see students, but plan and prepare for the fall when we'll have a full class of students. And we're allowed to do that with grant funding. And we're just really excited to be able to find him. He has done a lot of work with our tech center in the past, and really excited to bring him on board soon.
What was his name? I'm sorry, I missed it.
Jeremy, I think you say it Willett, but it's
Okay.
Ouellet. Ouellett.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Willett.
I have a
Cool.
couple of corrections to the draft minutes from December 8th. In the section on facilities, reserve funds, budget balance, maintenance, improvement committee, about halfway through that section, it says that Jim Vazina surplus 3.8 million at the end of June FY21, 460,000 surplus. The board has decided to use, and it currently says $1 to offset taxes this year. It should be $1 million to offset taxes this year. And then right after that, it says Jacob reported that the capital reserve fund has $413,000 balance that needs to be used by June 30th, 2021. That should be June 30th, 2022. Anything else that we need to address in the consent agenda?
No, I think that's it.
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. And we will vote. We'll start with Russ.
Yes.
Hava.
Aye.
Nancy.
Yes.
Peter.
Yes.
And I. Yes. That's pretty clean. It doesn't take a lot of time or anything. Okay. So meeting evaluation.
I will do it since I was the problem tonight, so. This is my sentence. Board meeting monitoring. At the end of each board meeting, each board member and the superintendent or appointed evaluator for the meeting completes this monitoring form. The responses are shared and a discussion is held on areas that need improvement. The chair collects the completed form to use in the board's monitoring reports. 1, board was prepared for the meeting. I'll give us a satisfactory. 2, board's time was spent on ends not means, satisfactory. Each board member was given an opportunity to participate, some of us more than others, satisfactory. Board treated all persons with courtesy and fairness, satisfactory. Board adhered to Robert's Rules of Order as appropriate and needed, satisfactory. Board adhered to its adopted governance style. It emphasized outward vision. It encouraged diversity in viewpoints. It exercised strategic leadership, not administrative detail. It made distinction between board and staff roles. It used collective decision-making. It looked to the future. Satisfactory in all of them.
Before you adjourn, can you clarify the next meeting date?
That was a calendar piece. I was gonna ask. So we're thinking of the 19th. What's that, next Wednesday?
Yes.
What time?
Same time?
Same time? Okay.
Same bat time.
Yeah, same bat channel.
And, primarily to clarify the budget warning.
Yeah, it'll be a very short agenda, or I mean, it'll be an intentional agenda, very, very specific. Hopefully, we don't get any more missives from up
The state.
above.
Yeah.
And before we adjourn, I just want to let my fellow board members know, the meeting on the 26th, I have scheduled and coordinated a presentation by the parties involved with the Haven expansion for informational purposes. And I've also invited the members of the select board to come to, in all public, obviously, for informational purposes.
That should be interesting.
Yeah, Russ has been working, on that. And, he and I have had a number of different discussions about, how do we engage? Because our primary responsibility as the school district is the effect on our kids and their safety. That's first and foremost. And so we want to hear so that, we're not talking about stopping the project, doing anything like that. We just want to know, are we going to have to put in any kind of extra safety protocols or anything along that line? So that's the genesis of our part of it, I would say.
Additionally, you have the auditor on deck to either come on the 19th or the 26th to present.
I would say the 19th.
Yeah.
Because of that's the final step in to have that completed when we finalize the budget numbers and everything else.
Perfect.
Does that work?
Lastly,
Hopefully they can. That's our first choice. If they can't, it's the 26th.
Then we'll just do a formal piece, with them at the beginning and then move into our community engagement.
We tried to get them here tonight, but they do so many schools they could.
Right.
Coach,
Yes.
before I say anything further, can I confirm that we do not need an executive session?
Correct.
All right. I would like to move we adjourn.
Second.
we have a motion and a second, and it's a non-debatable motion. I don't even think we need to do the roll. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Great,
Thank you
great
to
meeting,
everybody.
everyone. And Tom, would you do me a favor when you see Jacob? Would you let him know that I was asked to testify again on e-finance? And yeah.
Mhm.
And you know how we all feel about that little topic.
Mhm.
I just wanted to check in with him and Jim, before I get into any more trouble with them.
Yeah. Sorry,
Kevin, I
no.
have a legislative question. May I ask you quickly?
Sure.
The Senate is looking at about public money going to private schooling.
Oh, yeah.
What is that Senate number? I had written down 219, but that's not it. 219 is to do with the racial issue, and so I've written it down a wrong number.
Hold on, I can. Actually, we can finish. What I'll do is I'll text it to you.
That'd be great. Thank you.
I can do that pretty.
Yeah, I didn't want to. I needed to look at it and study it some, and I had written down the wrong number.
Yeah, that's going to be a real touchy discussion.
Yeah, it is. Thank you very much. Thank you all. Have a good evening. What's left of it. See you later. Thanks again, Kevin.
You're welcome.